like the Associated Press, which I call Associated Propaganda, the AP. They ran a international news story saying that Doge fired air traffic controllers, but we didn't fire any air traffic controllers at all. In fact, we're trying to hire air traffic controllers, not fire them.
Yeah, I saw that. You made a tweet about it, saying that we need highly qualified air traffic controllers, and if you retired, if you would consider doing it again, we could use it.
Yes. So a lot of really qualified air traffic controllers were pushed out because of DEI stuff. So, not to be blunt, a bunch of really good, talented old white guys were pushed out. It's not cool. And so there's a talent shortage in air traffic control because of DEI and not hiring people on merit.
Which is so crazy that work.
I think we should not put the public safety at risk.
No.
Because of some demented philosophy.
Somebody made a post today about it infiltrating the NSA. Did you see any of that?
That was
crazy.
Some gnarly stuff.
Yeah, crazy. What they had, it started off as just like this sort of fringe thing, and people would meet up. Then it completely infiltrated the organization.
Yeah,
and they were spending all their time.
It was like 400 people or something, and some sex chat room with like some extremely demented stuff.
Yeah. I know. I'll send it to you because it's so kooky. You're what? This is the NSA. I thought the NSA was just all about like information and.
We're supposed to like spy on, if there's a national threat or something.
Yeah, I think this is exactly it. So more than 100 intelligence staffers will be fired over sexually explicit texts in NSA chat rooms, Gabbard says. So top intelligence official told Waters that the workers in question were brazen in using an NSA platform intended for professional use to conduct this kind of really, really horrific behavior. What is the behavior? What is it? Do they say in this article?
Yeah. I think they will also...
Okay, it says employees who participate in the NSA's obscene, pornographic, and sexually explicit chat rooms.
Your tax dollars at work.
Well, it was all like it was all like LGBTQ stuff. There was a lot of like transition stuff and...
Yeah.
I know I definitely saved it, but point is, it infiltrated the organization.
It's not what they should be talking about.
At all. Yeah.
It's supposed to be protecting the country.
Right. Yeah. And people were talking about how they're spending half their time in these meetings and that they're just like constantly having to attend these things where they talk about these issues. Like, what are you doing? Like, if you have a problem with someone that's discriminatory, get rid of that person. That's it.
Yeah.
Problem's over. You've got someone who's homophobic in your business, they're openly homophobic. Yeah, you can't work here. That's not cool. That's it. You don't have to have meetings constantly promoting this. You're not going to change someone's opinion by berating them over and over again.
Yeah, a work environment should be a professional environment where they're getting the job done that they're being paid to do.
Of course.
It's obviously not supposed to be sort of getting paid for bizarre sex capades.
It's just so fascinating that the virus is so strong that it made it into the NSA.
Yes.
It was, you would think those are some hardcore...
And the CIA too. The CIA was in there too.
Yeah, they were in there too, which is bananas. You would think, same thing, like hard-nosed, like tough people doing hard work.
Who can spy on you whenever they want.
Yeah. Yeah.
And get revenge on you whenever they want.
Yeah. Pretty wild.
Yeah.
And, they exist when the president leaves. They stay. People move around. You stay a part of the organization for your entire career. You get deeply entrenched in their system and how things work and who's back to rub and who's a bad guy, who's a good guy, who's on our side, who's not.
Yeah. It's scary, actually.
Yeah.
We found just with a basic search of the Social Security database that there were 20 million dead people marked as alive.
But were they getting money?
Some of them were getting money.
What percentage of them?
It isn't clear. We're actually trying to run this through. I was trying to get an answer right before the show. What it looks like is that most of the fraud is not coming from Social Security payments directly, but because they're marked as alive in a Social Security database, that they can then get disability, unemployment, sort of fake medical payments, and other things because they're marked as alive in the Social Security database. So it looks like it's a bank. The fraud is a bank shot, essentially. They bank shot into Social Security. They just do an "Are you alive?" check, and then get fraudulent payments from every other part of the government. Yeah. And this exploits the fundamental weakness in the government is that the various government databases, they don't talk to each other. They talk to each other very poorly, in a very limited way. So the way that the system gets exploited is by taking advantage of the poor communication between the various databases in the government. To give you an example of like what's happening, say, Treasury, which is improving rapidly, the main payments computer is called PAM, Payment Accounts Master Database or something like that. Everyone calls it PAM. That's responsible for almost $5 trillion payments a year, roughly $1 billion an hour. And when we came there, we're looking at the PAM, and it's like the payments have no. You could put a payment through with no payment categorization code and no description on the payment, like basically untraceable blank checks. This is the kind of thing that if it was done as a public company, the company would be immediately delisted and the executive team would be thrown in prison. But this is just normal at the government. So we said, okay, our recommendation to the Treasury and the Federal Reserve is like, we need to make the payment categorization codes mandatory, not optional, and there needs to be an explanation. We're not judging the quality of the explanation, but there should be some explanation for what this payment is for above nothing. That's a radical change to the system that is being implemented now. My guess is that probably saves $100 billion a year.
Jesus Christ.
That's well, I might rough order of magnitude.
Where was that money going?
Well, so this is where you get into the sort of gray boundary between waste and fraud. If money is sent to a person or organization from the government, and you didn't really deserve it, but the government still sent it to you, is that waste or fraud?
Right.
So, I mean, there's a lot of payments where someone just approved the payment, but then that payment officer changed jobs or retired or died, and the payments just keep going. You know, it's like if you forget to pay your gym membership or something like that.
Right.
Now imagine it's not the gym membership. It's that your gym membership's $20 billion a year or something, you know. But they forgot to turn it off. That's happening at scale in the government.
Jesus
It's totally nuts,
Christ,
is what I'm
that's
saying.
so insane.
Yes, it's totally insane. So
What did you expect when you went in? Did you
I
expect
thought
it would be
bad.
like this?
I thought it would be bad, but I did not think it would be as bad as this. I mean, look, the good news is that it's a target-rich environment for saving money. It's not like if it was a very well-run ship, if it was very efficient, it would be hard to improve. But it's not efficient, so therefore it is actually relatively easy to improve. Let's just say it's not rocket science. You know, I know rocket science. So it's a lot of mundane things. And some of the things are like so crazy that we didn't even know to ask about that because we just assumed like, you know, payments out of the Treasury computer would have a payment categorization code and it would have some explanatory note saying what the payment's for. The idea that it would be just untraceable blank checks didn't occur to us at first.
Jesus.
So
Canelo apparently had made a deal with Jake Paul to fight Jake Paul.
Ridiculous.
Ridiculous, but I bet it was for a significant amount of money.
Still ridiculous.
Yeah, but fun. I'd watch it. Look, Jake Paul wants to test himself against actual, not just world champion, but one of the greatest of all time.
He would be, if Canelo really fought and it wasn't fixed, Jake Paul would not survive 45 seconds.
I don't know about that. I think it would take a few rounds.
Really?
But yeah, first
If
of all,
Canelo
Jake is a
came
lot
out.
bigger. Jake's a lot bigger.
But what weight
So-
would they fight
Well,
at?
I don't think Jake is getting anywhere lower than 205 pounds. He's a huge guy.
But so Canelo would let him fight at 205.
I think that would be the case. I think Canelo, when he got to 175, when he was fighting light heavyweight, and he still fluctuates between 68 and 75, I feel like he probably weighs 190 when he's walking around. So he would probably weigh 190, and Jake would weigh over 200. They would probably fight either at cruiserweight or they would fight at heavyweight.
But didn't Tommy Fury take Jake Paul?
No, he beat him, but it was a
But
very
he-
good fight. It was a
But,
very good fight.
that's what I'm saying. But
Yeah.
Tommy Fury versus compared to Canelo, you
Right.
think?
Different levels. Yeah, no doubt. Look, who's favored for sure? The greatest of all time. I mean, one of the greatest boxers of all time, Canelo Alvarez. He's the favorite. But I'd like to see what happens. It would be crazy. I like a little freak show every now and then.
Well,
as
I do
far
too.
as would you like to see?
I
if
like
Jake
a
Paul,
lot of freak show.
Look, if Jake
Joe.
Paul wants to fight for the title, I would like to see him beat top contenders in the light heavyweight division or whatever division he chooses to compete at, and then eventually fight for a title. Yeah.
But are the fights even real? Like the Tyson fight? Like I saw video breakdowns of Tyson not throwing punches early on in that fight. I don't know if you watched any of those
Yep.
videos where
Yeah.
there's a left hook is 100% available. Tyson in training 99% of the time releases that punch and he held that. Do you think that was was that a real fight?
It looked like sparring to me. That's what it looked
But
like.
with an arrangement beforehand?
I wouldn't want to speculate because I haven't talked to anybody about
Right,
it. But
okay.
my educated assessment,
Agreed.
yes.
Agreed.
It looked like sparring. It didn't look like a fight.
And you think if Canelo and Jake Paul agreed to do it,
I don't think that would be that. I think that would be a fight.
that would be a fight?
That would be a fight.
Like a sanctioned,
Yes.
real, not
It
an
would have to be a fight. Yeah.
Like
I
12
don't think Canelo Alvarez is making any agreements where he's not going to knock you out.
Well, he's
He
not
doesn't-
taking the fight though, right?
Well, this is what happened. So they had this agreement, and Jake Paul actually told me about the agreement when I met him at the inauguration. We were talking about it, and I was like, "Holy, that hadn't been announced yet." I was like, "That's crazy." And then Turkey came along and said, "All that, let me throw some money at you," and said, "Stop with all this bullshit. You need to be fighting the greatest fighters in the world right now. You need to be fighting Benavidez. You need to fight Terrence Crawford."
It does feel that way, actually.
Yeah. I'm sure if you go to Diddy's house, it probably feels
Oh
real
my-
weird.
You
Probably
know-
feels weird walking around that house, probably like, what happened here?
Yeah.
I bet there's some memories of that house. You know?
Sounds rough, man.
Well, it's just amazing how many people on the Diddy party list that are supporting Kamala.
Yeah, seriously, it's like insane.
Publicly, openly,
Yeah.
all in.
Yes. It's like J-Lo, was like his ex-girlfriend. and it's like, now deciding she's like warning people against Trump. I'm
Is
like,
he the
well,
bad
wait a
one?
second. So how many people did she warn against Diddy?
Right.
Oh, 0. Okay.
Right.
Well, maybe we should trust her opinion.
Did you see the Babylon Bees take on it? Did you see the Babylon Bees?
I thought these awesome, but
Oh my God, they're so on fire because the left can't say anything.
Well,
Because the Onion has been crippled.
well, the problem is that like the sort
Find
of,
that post.
the woke ideology makes like humor illegal.
Yeah.
So when like there's so many humor no-fly zones,
Right.
you can't make fun of anything.
Yeah. Babylon Bee had a thing about Kamala Harris. Diddy's ex-girlfriend urges Americans to trust her judgment. Yeah. By the way, you get to see how bad an actress she is too. That's
But I mean, like if she's gonna be warning people, why did she never warn anyone about Diddy?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The whole thing is so strange to watch play out. It seems like the Diddy thing was like an Epstein-type compromise deal, where he had, whether he was doing it himself, conceivably, people want to think that he's attached to some intelligence agency or something like that. I think he's a gangster who made $1 billion and knew how to control people by compromising them. That's what I think. Whether or not he had help, I don't know. Whether or not he shared some of that information with people so they knew they had compromising stuff on people, I don't know. But clearly he was doing it for his own jollies too. There was something sick about it.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that people in the music industry, entertainment industry had to know that Diddy was like abusing, kids basically. and yet they still fed him kids. And like, where's the
There
accountability?
had to be rumors. There had to be. There had to be.
They had to know.
Yeah.
They had to know.
Cat Williams is talking about it on
Exactly.
on that podcast.
But like, it's like who's feeding him the kids? You know.
Right. Yeah. And what videos do they have of these people where they're willing to defend him and they're willing to keep quiet about all this? Like how many people were compromised?
Yeah.
The whole thing is fucking crazy.
Crazy.
It's just crazy when you know, because the nutty conspiracy theories is like, oh, there's a bunch of pedophiles in Hollywood. And you're like, come on, that sounds too kooky. And then you see like the Nickelodeon thing and all these things. You're like, what the fuck? How much of this is real?
There's a lot more real than I think people realize.
Yeah.
I mean, part of it is like you say, like where, you know, if someone's like a pedophile, they're going to go for a targeted environment.
Right.
Obviously.
Like that Jimmy Savile guy from the UK.
Man, that guy was some next level. That was next level. And the BBC tried to hide that. That guy was one of the worst, like basically child rapists of all time.
Of all time.
Of all time.
Yeah. And looked like one.
He looked like one.
That's
like,
what's
honestly,
crazy.
if you have a poster of like, does this guy look like
Look, the creepiest
like
fucking
an evil,
looking guy.
evil child rapist?
Yeah.
That 100%.
Made it to the grave. Like,
Yes.
got away with it.
Yes.
Got away with it until he died. They hid it from people until he died.
Yeah.
Who?
That's,
To who? You
that's what
have
I'm
to
saying.
have done it to someone, but there's no effort at all to uncover that.
But I'm saying now, this year, it's kind of crazy how this year started off with, what's his name, Cat Williams. On Shannon Sharp. He starts talking, spilling the tea, sipping the cognac.
Yeah.
And then now this whole P. Diddy thing.
Sometimes you have to tell Diddy no.
Oh, man, bruh.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh,
Sean
man.
Diddy Combs' alleged list of accomplishments to be revealed soon. The names will shock you, attorney says. Whoa.
I think he's going to sing,
I think he has to sing or he
Bro,
goes to
also, I'll
jail
tell you
for the
one
rest of
thing.
his life.
God protects me. I'm so glad God protects me. Because, look, if I got invited to the white party, I'd have gone.
Especially if you didn't know.
Of course, no one knows. No one
Right.
And
If
then
you don't know,
find
you're just
out.
a celebrity, and you know, oh, Jennifer Lopez is going to be there. Oh, Rick
That's what I'm
Ross is
saying.
going to be there. Everyone's going to be there. That would be a cool place. I want to meet those people.
Facts. And I just want to be there having fun partying, but then they start to, apparently, they said they were using, I'm going to guess it's like ketamine, because they said horse tranquilizer. And they were putting in people's drinks in the champagne and then getting them all loose.
Yeah.
That's a secret. It's just us two, right?
Yeah.
After I knocked out Pereira in Miami, we went to Tootsie's the next night, and they were like, yo, P. Diddy was in here watching a fight last night. I was like, wait, word? Crazy. And I went and checked my DMs, and I saw, oh, shit, he hit me up. And he was talking about 2 months later, I want to do an interview or whatever. And I said, here's my manager's number. But cool. Nothing ever came off it. But again, that's why I say God will protect you.
Right.
Because who knows? Like, you never know. Oh, yeah, we're having this party later on. Yeah, that's cool. All right, cool. And then they start to, like, you find some chick, you put on you, and then, boom. Oh, how was that 15-year-old? Wait, what?
Right. And
Yeah.
you filmed. Yeah.
I
And
heard
then-
about that,
Yeah.
yeah.
He had, apparently, allegedly,
Yeah,
cameras all
all
over the house, and
1,000 bottles of baby oil.
Yeah. What?
Nobody's that
Thousand?
ashy, bro. 1,000. Also, by the way, that shit lube. Coconut oil is better. Fucking water-based lubricant.
Yeah.
But baby oil is acidic as fuck. Johnson & Johnson. Like, that's demonic, bro. Like, why would you use baby oil? Even
Old
if you're
school.
fucking dude. Nah.
Probably started out with it. That's all the bottles.
Nah, that's AI. That's
that
gotta be
AI?
AI. That's gotta be AI.
I don't know if it's AI. I think that's real. I think it was lube and baby oil. I think you had a variety of different substances.
Who counted that? Was
Look at that.
1,000?
Look at that.
1, 2, 3
Bro,
bottles of
imagine
baby oil.
having
4, 5,
500
6 bottles
bottles.
of baby oil on the wall.
Imagine having 500 bottles and go, we need to go for a
Yeah.
fucking Target run.
Nah, man. Oh, the fact that they said it was fucking what you call Costco, and Costco goes, nah, we don't sell that shit.
What is this? Defaced AR-15s? Interesting. What does that mean? Does that
So
mean
they scratch the
serial numbers
phone
off?
Yeah.
Whoa, that's a serious crime.
Yeah.
That's a serious crime.
But again, see, he's in cahoots with Epstein, and then
Is he in cahoots with? Was he in cahoots with
Yeah.
Epstein, or was it just a similar type of an operation?
they were friends.
Really?
Yeah, because Epstein had a fucking on Miami as well. That really private, rich estate in Miami. So they were all in cahoots as well. But again, I think he's gonna sing.
Isn't it crazy crazy. Like, that was always the conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat thing. Oh, there's a place where the elites go to fuck underage kids. Like, what?
What's his name? Alex Jones.
Alex Jones.
Yeah.
He was right. He was right.
He was right about a lot of things.
Almost everything.
Yeah, most.
About almost everything. Fuck up that one. But almost everything else, he was right. But you got to realize that that guy had been uncovering real conspiracies that the media had not covered for
years.
fucking decades. And he was literally having like a psychotic break because of it, because he's just drinking all the time and dealing with the stress.
How would you, even Kanye, imagine you trying to tell people something,
Right.
and then no one believes you and they call you crazy. I go crazy just trying to explain to people. Even I can imagine the frustration of trying to explain to
Right.
someone, and you're like, no, this is really happening. And they're like, yeah, whatever, you this and that. And I went down the rabbit hole in 2020. I'll tell you, I did. I had to. And for me, it was just like,
So these people that are is there documentation that shows the effectiveness of certain techniques? Like, do we have any of their work? Like the Jolly West, did he publish any things, or did he leave behind documents explaining what worked and what didn't work?
Yeah, some. But you know, this guy named, I don't know his first name, Church, got really pissed off at all the CIA stuff. And
The
launched
church.
the church committee.
Yeah.
He said, we're going to get it all. And then the CIA launched a destruction order. And said, we need to destroy. It was like Enron at the CIA. Papers getting shredded and all that stuff.
Oh.
And some of the documents survived the destruction order.
Did you read Chaos, the Tom O'Neill book?
No.
It's about the Manson family, how they did it with the Manson family. It's essentially, he lays out a very compelling case for the CIA not only training Manson, but supplying him with LSD and then getting him out of jail every time he got caught. And that it was done to change the perception of the anti-war movement. Like the hippies were peace, love, and psychedelic music, and people were dropping out of society. And instead, the narrative now became, no, they are murderers and psychopaths, and they're going to kill beautiful actresses and people in Hollywood.
So they thought he would be like the vaccine for something very, all the
Yes,
people.
yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, that they took this guy who was a con man and had sort of a proclivity towards, influencing people and being charismatic. And you ever heard his music?
No, I didn't know he did music.
Yeah, he actually recorded with Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys, and I think Brian Wilson and him, there was like a real problem because his career didn't take off, and like threatened him. It became very problematic, his relationship with Brian Wilson. But there's a so you can find the song, listen to it a little bit. The man said, "Can we play this? Does someone own this? How's that work?"
Something I've had. You guys talked. Guns N' Roses covered one of those songs. You know that?
Oh yeah, we talked about
Yeah,
that.
I think we did.
Yeah. But he recorded some songs, and they're not that bad.
Is that him singing?
Yeah.
That's not bad.
It's not bad.
Yeah, it's decent.
It's not bad. It's like, it's an okay, shitty song from the 60s.
Yeah.
It's not something you want to put on your Spotify playlist, but it's not bad.
It's better than a third of guys that play at the bar.
Yeah. It's better than a third of the guys on 6th Street in Austin, Texas. It's not bad. I mean, he was a charismatic person, right? And that's what you need to run a cult, and that's what you need to be a good rock star.
And a lot of psychedelics.
Yeah, and he apparently wouldn't take them. He would give them to people, pretend to take them, and then he would use these methods to manipulate them while they were under. So, like, he's sober, and he's going through this CIA textbook of how to manipulate and control these people. And then he gets these people like Tex Watson, and, Squeaky Fromm, and all these psychopaths. And he, through this sort of indoctrination and bringing them into the family, and they're staying with him, and then he's committing murders and crimes, and he keeps getting out. He gets arrested, and they let him out. And the sheriffs that let him out, they all have the same explanation. I was told it was above my pay grade, and they just let him out. So the guy's violating parole, and he's getting out, like, multiple times. Like
God.
it's
I didn't
very
know this.
Yeah, and there's a real compelling case for Jolly West. First of all, there's anecdotal evidence. Jolly West visited him in jail, and they think that that's when it all started.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
and
don't
then
doubt
this
any of
well,
that.
it makes sense because like that's a really successful cult. Like as far as like the historical footprint, you know, like everybody knows about the Manson family. I mean, like, that worked. That scared the shit out of everybody. It was weird. Like, oh my God, what if your children join the Manson family? Oh my God, my kids are vulnerable. What if they want to be peace, love, and flower children and they get wrapped up in the family? And it just sort of changed the tone in society with people. And it was also at the same time when they passed that sweeping Schedule 1 Psychedelics Act where they made everything illegal. It's all around the same time.
And art goes to zero.
Yeah,
Like,
art goes
all art
into the toilet.
starts disappearing. Architecture.
A lot of things
Music.
went south. Yeah, car design. But the fact that there's real compelling evidence that this was the government, and that this is the government's response to this immense cultural change that took place between 1950 and 1960. And it's not like just guessing. It's like there's real programs that they were involved in that were absolutely doing that kind of work.
100%.
Yeah, and that's really crazy to think of.
We have 5 non-speaking members of our production team, which is awesome.
Oh, wow.
So cool. Like 2 are specializing in like working on graphics and depicting what things that they talk about look like the chat on the hill. I don't know if you've heard of this telepathic chat room where non-speakers hang out. We can come back to that. And
Okay.
like the realms where maybe they get information. So, or just even what it means to see auras or to see stuff like that. So we have 2 graphics advisors that will be working with the graphics house on that stuff. We have a scientific advisor who's going to help us figure out how to best do the telepathy tapes with the scientists that we'll be working with, and then 2 story kind of consultants. So it's really cool to for all 5 of these individuals. I believe it's the first paying job they've ever had. So it's just cool having them on
that's
our
very
team.
cool. So what is this chat on the hill?
Okay, so that was one of the harder things to wrap my head around. When I first met Katie in Houston, Katie said, you know, Houston talks about this telepathic chat room where he can go hang out with his friends. He can kind of tune into this telepathic chat room, and he teaches there too, and it's a place where they can commune and talk and encourage you to.
He teaches in the telepathic chat room?
Yeah, Houston's like really special. He really is, and I think there are different roles that this person might talk about plant energy, and this person might talk about this, and I've heard this now from. Well, let's just back up. So,
How many people are in this telepathic chat room?
well, I don't know, but well, I'll get to that answer. Let me just because I think that's an interesting thing. So Houston started talking about this, what he calls the talk on the hill, which is this telepathic chat room, and then I met his good friend John Paul, who's also kind of based in Atlanta, and John Paul would go up to his room and put 4 pillows on his head, and his mom was like, he's on the hill, and this is what he does, kind of get everything out, all the sounds of the house, so he could really concentrate and get there. And, you know, she said he really has, like, developed a beautiful relationship with his girlfriend on the hill, and I'm like, what? So I didn't know what to make of it, only I knew that it felt very real to these parents and these individuals, and people were talking about it in Atlanta. So I thought, okay, this might be an Atlanta thing, that these individuals are doing this. They don't have to be in the same room, the same zip code, that they can like connect. And on the day I met John Paul, he was on the hill at one point, and I asked that question. I said, how many people are on the hill right now? And I think he wrote like 4,000 something. And I was like, holy cow, it seems like a lot. And he's like, well, people are really excited about the documentary right now. So everyone's tuning in to find out like what's happening with this. So I was like, whoa. And then I just like buried that in my heart. It's not okay. This is something that is real in Atlanta. And then I was talking to like the next big, again, telepathy tapes was not out yet. I met a minister in Arizona who had like the largest youth, like special needs youth ministry or something. And I was on Zoom with him because he was like, found out about the telepathy and found out about these gifts. And there was a person in his congregation who could predict the future and see things happening in other spaces in the world. And he was just, you know, I think we were connecting to be like, okay, yeah, you've seen this? Okay, let's talk about this. And he was kind of going through his list of what he's witnessed with the individuals in his ministry. And one of the things he said to me was, I was on Zoom the other day with another young individual, another individual from Minnesota, getting these two to connect. And they start talking about something called The Hill. They go to this place called The Hill. Have you ever heard about this? And I almost fell out of my chair. And then maybe like a few months after that, I was talking to a teacher, and she goes, you know, some of my students, have you ever heard about this? They talk about going to some place called The Hill. And one of them says he goes there to learn about time travel, and the other one likes to talk about someone from Norway who talks about the bees and beekeeping and beach stuff. And at that point, I mean, my head is exploding, just like, wait, it's like real? Like, geez, you know? And then there's a father in Israel who I have talked to a lot about this over the years, and he's kept really good track too of like how telepathy's been buried in the spelling community and in the education community, what's been going on and how teachers are being fired. So he's fascinating. But one of the things he told me, he's like, oh yeah, we have a separate hill in Israel where a lot of the Orthodox like Jewish folks go, and they have their own hill. And then I would get some emails and be like, you know, there's also a hill in Arizona, Florida. Like, there's different hills. So it's a mystery. It's a magical mystery. But
they all call it the same thing?
Yeah, and I don't. And then I've also met, like, after the telepathy tapes came out, one family wrote me and said, hey, my son has said he has telepathy, no doubt there, but he can only do it with people in the room, but he's never been to the hill. How does he get to the hill? And I thought, I don't know, I guess ask another non-speaker who maybe can teach you how to like dial into the right frequency. You know, I'm not exactly sure how that works, but it's really, it's awesome, you know.
Now, is there one hill or is there many hills?
I think there's a few hills.
And have they verified that people who are communicating in this hill are actually communicating with these individuals?
Yeah, and in fact, that's one of the storylines in the film that I'm really excited about. Like, one of the subjects is a young girl who's always felt pretty isolated. You know, it's hard sometimes to make friends if you're not able to communicate at school or whatever. So, but she was bringing up names and has brought up names that her mom was like, or, you know, they're not in her school, they're not in our periphery, they're not in any of our social stuff. And then once the telepathy tapes came out, these Facebook groups sprang up of families that were kind of going through this stuff. And in that process, she found, I think, the core of these individuals that her daughter was saying she was really good friends with on the hill.
And they also say they go to the hill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we've like corroborated all these points in this girl's life.
Have you tried to corroborate actual distribution of information, actual communication?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have you done that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's
Whoa.
Yeah. I mean, that's of course like you have to imagine for everyone in this world, all the families that I'm close to, and teachers and therapists and stuff. It's still remarkable. So anytime someone says something, we will try to validate it. Like, this person just said they saw this person on the hill. Can you validate they were there? And then, oh my gosh, yes. What did they talk about? This was said and this was said. Hey, this person says that person is on the hill and talking about blank. Oh yeah, I can verify that person teaches about that on the hill. So, like, it's not like anyone is taking any of this just on stride. Like, we're just, you know, I think there's still that human nature, like you were talking about, that like even the parents and teachers and me and the people on the front lines of this are still always trying to validate it. Like, this happened, is that true? Did you get that same thing? And then there's that moment of like, oh my God, like that's happening with all of us all the time too. That mind-blowing, wow, that just, you know, bore out. It's remarkable when it happens.
The hill thing is next level.
It's next level.
And why is it the hill? Why do they call it the hill? Because he was Mike Tyson again. He was getting ready to fight again. He was terrified. And this is Mike Tyson again at 50, right? So imagine what Mike Tyson at 22 was like. I mean, it had to be terrifying.
I bet he won so many fights just psychological.
Oh, yeah.
Standing across the ring looking at that guy, even if I was a good fighter.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah, everybody
Why am
was
I-
terrified of him.
you stand like, why am I doing this?
Uh-huh. Yeah, he had an aura, and all the greats have auras like that. Roy Jones had that aura in his prime too, where you knew the fighter that he was facing was buff. And it, you know, eventually catches up with you, and it did with Mike and Buster Douglas, and then Evander Holyfield, and some of the other fights after that. But you know, when a fighter has that aura, it takes a very special, competent person to overcome that. And that's why winning a title is so difficult. It's so difficult to be the champion. is the psychological, especially if you've never had a championship fight and you're fighting someone like, Anderson Silva in his prime, who had just been dominating his division. This is your first world title fight. And you're fighting a guy who's been there, done that 8 times, destroyed everybody in his path, and he's looking at you the way he's not even remotely nervous about you. And he's like smiling at you, and he thinks he's just gonna tear you apart.
Yeah.
And it takes a person of very special psychological, you have to have a fortitude. Your mind has to be so fucking strong to be able to handle that moment, because it's not just a physical fight of skills, it's also the moment.
Yeah.
And the moment is overwhelming. It's so different than everything else. And we're going to talk about novelty. The novelty of a world title fight. I mean, just imagine someone backstage at the UFC. There's 4 fights before you get on, and you're watching people get knocked out and head kicked. You're in the green room, and you're in the locker room, rather, and you're warming up, you're practicing, you're hitting mitts, and you're thinking, what the fuck am I getting myself into? Like, what am I doing? And then you see Anderson Silva warming up, and you're like, oh, Jesus Christ, what am I doing? Like, you have to have a very special mind to be able to overcome that. And I think it's one of the reasons why a lot of fighters today are seeking out mental coaches. It's very common. And I first found about it through my friend Vinny Shorman, who has worked with a lot of MMA fighters and a lot of world championship kickboxers as well, and helped a lot of people with that. But there's quite a few different fighters now that utilize mental coaches and some sort of visualization coaching, and where they have very specific goals in terms of how they want to walk out, what they want. They want to see the whole thing. There's guys like John Jones would famously like walk out before the fight, and he would move around the octagon. He would like soak it all up in. Yeah, when no one's there. And we would get footage of it sometimes of him just moving around. He'd move around with his coaches. He just wanted to feel the floor under his feet. He wanted to see the cage. He wanted to get himself in that mindset. And John is, if not the greatest, one of the absolute greatest of all time. And, he was meticulous and still is meticulous about his preparation.
The whole idea that this kid, Joseph Smith, I believe he was a young teenager, 14,
Yeah.
when he and his buddy walked into these woods in like late 1830s, right? Like,
It was 1820.
okay,
When did he when did Joseph Smith supposedly find these golden
the
tablets?
tablet.
I believe it was. But either way, early.
Brigham Young had 56. There's a photo of
There's
it.
16 he forgot about.
See, I didn't want to oversell it, so I undersold it. I kind of knew it was in the 50s. He had 56 wives.
46 kids, only 46 kids made it to adulthood. What ROI?
Oh, wow. Only 46. It's basically Genghis Khan of Utah.
But
1823, he was visited by an angel who directed him to Little Buried Book.
1823?
and how old was he? Like
14.
14. So,
Yeah.
but so this kid at 14 and comes out of the woods and says, the angel came and told me that the Bible's almost right, but it's not quite right. So I'm going to rewrite it, which he did, the Book of Mormon. And look at where we are today. It was not that long ago, right? And in the course of that journey from Joseph Smith coming out of the woods to where we are today with Brigham Young University and, you know, beautiful city of Salt Lake City, Utah, there was a lot of bloodshed. And Joseph Smith was murdered. Brigham Young fought in another interesting theory that isn't proven, but it's, I believe it holds, is what saved the Mormons. Because in 1857, when you had the Mormon Wars, you know, Brigham Young was fighting President Buchanan, and when the military was coming after him in 1857, and he was holed up and prepared to fight in Salt Lake City, and Buchanan wanted him out. And then right around 1858, 1859, a little thing called the Civil War popped off. And the entire focus of the U.S. military was not on Brigham Young and Utah, but it was on fighting the Civil War. The Utah church was able, and Brigham Young was able to grow the Mormon church, and survive and thrive, and he was able to politically negotiate, a place in the government, so that by the time the Civil War ended, Brigham Young was deeply entrenched and was, able to lead the Mormon Church to the great power that it is today. I think if the Civil War hadn't occurred, there would be no Mormonism in the United States.
Wow, that's crazy. What a fortuitous turn of events.
And I'm going to probably get ripped on for that one, but I believe it's supportable.
Yeah, you're gonna get ripped for everything.
That's okay.
It's just how it is. Mormons are the nicest people. My next door neighbors used to be Mormons. They're the nicest
I
people.
agree. I completely agree. And
They're so nice. I know a ton of Mormons because I know a bunch of people in Utah.
And Salt Lake City, Utah is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful state. Salt Lake City is a cool city, and I'm down with the Sundance Film Festival, so I'm down with the whole state.
Yeah. No, I love Utah, but it is a fascinating story. It's and it's, look, they have a great sense of humor because the Book of Mormon, when Matt Stone and Trey Parker did that musical, they took out a full-page ad in the playbook. So they're like, if you want to know more about Mormonism, come visit, find out the real thing. So instead of protesting and suing and attacking them, and they just took out an ad.
So when I was
I think that shows incredible character.
For sure.
Because Stephen, you've seen the Book of Mormon, right?
Yes, I have.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
And pretty brutal. And
But
they're like, if you like to find out more about Mormonism,
Yeah, I can't figure out, when I was doing my research for American Primeval, I went to Salt Lake City, and the Mormon Church gave me a tour, and I told them what the film was about, and that the Mountain Meadows Massacre was in the book. I was going to be in our show, and they took me to the theater. Have you ever been to the theater, the Mormon Theater in Salt Lake City?
No.
It holds 20,000 people. It is the most beautiful, incredible theater where they have, weekly, events and meetings, and they took me in there, and there's a huge pipe organ, and I had a private, concert with their organist. Yeah, it's that.
whoa, look at that place.
And I sat by myself in the center of that theater, and you see the pipe organs.
Yeah.
And they gave me a private, concert, and then they took me into the museum and showed me, the history of the Mormon Church, and I told them about the Meadows Massacre, which I've taken heat for in the show. And at the end of the tour, there's a bookstore in the museum, the Mormon Museum in Salt Lake, and the book Mountain Meadows Massacre by this guy Turley was there, and I'm like, I want to buy this book. I read the book, and I'm like, oh, for sure we're putting this story in our film, and it was for sale in the Mormon bookstore.
Whoa.
And I met with the author, Turley, who then took me to the site of the Mountain Meadows Massacre, and he had written the book with the support of the Mormon Church to get their side of the story
Did you
out.
film at the actual site?
No, we didn't. The actual site was in Utah, but I went and toured it.
So you filmed in New Mexico?
Yeah, we filmed everything on different reservations around Santa Fe. But if you go to the site of the Mormon Meadows Massacre in Utah, the Mormons have built a big memorial there honoring the 130 pioneers from Arkansas who were killed there, and the Mormons have owned this event, and they were very willing to talk about it, which is kind of like them buying a full-page ad in Book of Mormon.
Right.
They're like, we know you're going to make a film about the Meadows Massacre that's probably going to be inflammatory in some ways. However, come visit us. We want to meet you. We want to show you. We want to play music for you. And I had an incredible time with the Mormons that were, involved with us doing the research for Primeval.
Because he was Mike Tyson again. He was getting ready to fight again, and he was terrified. And this is Mike Tyson again at 50, right? So imagine what Mike Tyson at 22 was like. I mean, it had to be terrible.
I bet he won so many fights just psychologically.
Oh, yeah.
Standing across the ring looking at that guy, even if I was a good fighter.
Yeah.
I'm like, man,
Yeah, everybody was terrified of him.
you stand like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, he had an aura, and all the greats have auras like that. Roy Jones had that aura in his prime too, where you knew the fighter that he was facing was flat. And it, eventually catches up with you, and it did with Mike, with Buster Douglas, and then Evander Holyfield, and some of the other fights after that. But when a fighter has that aura, it takes a very special, competent person to overcome that. And that's why winning a title is so difficult. It's so difficult to be the champion. It's the psychological, especially if you've never had a championship fight, and you're fighting someone like, Anderson Silva in his prime, who had just been dominating his division. This is your first world title fight. And you're fighting a guy who's been there, done that 8 times, destroyed everybody in his path, and he's looking at you the way, and he's not even remotely nervous about you, and he's like smiling at you, and he thinks he's just gonna tear you apart. Yeah. And it takes a person of very special psychological, you have to have a fortitude. Your mind has to be so fucking strong to be able to handle that moment, because it's not just a physical fight of skills, it's also the moment. Yeah. And the moment is overwhelming. It's so different than everything else. When you want to talk about novelty, the novelty of a world title fight. I mean, just imagine someone backstage at the UFC. There's 4 fights before you get on, and you're watching people get knocked out and head kicked. You're in the green room, and you're in the locker rooms rather, and you're warming up, you're practicing, you're hitting mitts, and you're thinking, what the fuck am I getting myself into? Like, what am I doing? And then you see Anderson Silva warming up, and you're like, oh, Jesus Christ, what am I doing? Like, you have to have a very special mind to be able to overcome that. And I think it's one of the reasons why a lot of fighters today are seeking out mental coaches. It's very common. And I first found about it through my friend Vinny Shorman, who has worked with a lot of MMA fighters and a lot of world championship kickboxers as well, and helped a lot of people with that. There's quite a few different fighters now that utilize mental coaches and some sort of visualization coaching, and where they have very specific goals in terms of how they want to walk out, what they want. They want to see the whole thing. There's guys like John Jones would famously walk out before the fight, and he would move around the octagon. He would soak it all up in. When no one's there. Before everything. And we would get footage of it sometimes of him just moving around. He'd move around with his coaches.
They did an autopsy on JFK too, and it was not his body.
Well,
Probably.
sort of. They did 2 autopsies.
Right.
They did. The initial examination of the body was in Dallas, and then they flew it to Bethesda.
Yeah.
The thing about that is, and this is a part of David Lifton's book, Best Evidence, which made me become a conspiracy theorist.
I've never read it.
It's great. And David Lifton, who is an accountant, they gave him, I forget what the project was, but it was something to do with the Warren Commission report. So this guy's like a serious bookworm. He read the entire Warren Commission, which nobody does.
Yep.
And it's like 9,000 pages.
That's a
something like that.
superpower.
Yeah.
Being able to read like that.
Exactly, and find contradictions over and over and over again. He's like, this whole thing's horse. Then he found out that Kennedy's brain was missing when it got all the way to Bethesda. He found out that the Dallas doctors said that the neck wound was an entry wound, and then the ones in Bethesda turned it into a tracheotomy hole. It was a bullet hole. He got shot. You could see him go like
Garbage
that.
all over the place. And then you can also see his face get blown off, and they published photos of him from the official autopsy where his face was visible.
I have a theory, and this is just mine.
Yeah, I'm
and
really
I'm
curious
sure
to
I'm
hear
not the
yours.
only one. I think he got shot in the head at the same time from 2 different directions.
That's a good theory, honestly.
Because there's a bit of spray that goes forward, which is not like, things are weird when you hit them with bullets. Like, people have shot people in the head and the bullets come out their eye.
Yeah,
like
like
it ricochets
around the
around, like a
back of the
22
skull.
or something like
Yep.
that. Weird things happen when you shoot things, but some things are super consistent. And one thing that's super consistent is when you hit something, it goes in the direction that you hit it, right? So back and to the left. Hicks used to talk about that all the time. Back and to the left.
Yeah.
We've been making fun of the fact that the Zapruder film clearly showed that it wasn't a shot from the back. But the head goes spray, too. It goes spray like this, back and to the left. Can we see it? Let's see it real quick.
Yeah, something I love about the JFK story is that there are so many deep experts that have really done the dig, and they don't all come to the same conclusions.
Well, here's the thing about Lipton's book. He also documents how many witnesses were murdered. And it's astounding.
That's the
All
part
these
that often
witnesses,
gets left off,
their
too.
cars got parked on railroad tracks, and they died
Weird.
of heart attacks when they were 30, and they got shot in a robbery,
Funny
and they committed
coincidences.
suicide. They gassed. They fell asleep in their car.
Man, Hillary Clinton sure got started early.
Yeah. Back into the left. Watch this. Watch this, the explosion.
He's already hitting the neck. You're totally
See-
right. It's like
see?
a cloud in
Right?
the front, right?
I mean, it could be that the top of his head exploded right there, and the force drives him back. It also could, there's another possibility, and the possibility is spontaneous nerve reaction of your body shutting down.
Yeah.
Which could cause you to go back into the left, even if you get shot in the front.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the spray, or if you get shot in the back, rather, the spray looks like it's going forward. Like, we'll watch when he gets hit. See that?
Yep. It's just weird.
But that could be. But the thing is, there's not a bullet hole on the other side. So that could be just the opening of the head, and it's an explosion of blood that comes out. Also, you have to realize he's probably bleeding internally already. He got shot in the neck. So he gets shot here. There's probably blood spraying all over the place inside of his head. And then, boom, he gets shot in the front of his head. But his head clearly goes back into the left.
Yeah.
Like, almost instantaneously. And in a way that you would imagine if someone got hit like that. Watch this again. Boom,
Oh,
he gets
good
hit.
catch on that frame.
And then back.
And it's all gone. Like, his face is just
Oh, it's
clearly
gone.
open right
Gone.
there.
Right.
And it's clearly not a shot from behind. I mean, like,
It's definitely not a shot from behind because there's no entry wound
Yeah.
in the back of his head. And if you're saying that thing hit the front of his head or the side of his head from behind like that,
I feel like if there was a conspiracy theorist training course, the JFK assassination would be like the perfect like dry run training course to like build it around, because you have all the pieces. You have a complex conspiracy with unknown actors from intelligence agencies and organized crime and maybe multiple governments. It's like, and we don't know all that. Then you have a complex cover-up that evolved over time. You have like researchers. You have bad information being fed in from outside. You have conspiracy theorists that are taking it in directions that are like corroborable.
Right.
It's got all the things that you need to both learn how to dig into and learn how to watch out for. It's a lot of fun.
well, and also people didn't really get serious about it until about 12 years after the assassination.
You know?
So when Geraldo Rivera has Dick Gregory on his show, oh, what is this?
Whoa. Have you guys ever heard the theory that frames were taken out of the Zapruder film to make it
that
look like
one's
the car never
crazy.
slowed down?
That's crazy.
That's bizarre. The thing is, I don't know how to trust things like AI reconstructions of videos.
Let's just trust it, bro. It's fine. Boom! Oh my goodness,
Dude,
that
poor
is
Jackie,
so
man.
crazy.
So,
Oh my god, that's so crazy.
the theory about the driver shooting him, that's the one I've never bought, honestly.
No, that's,
People always say the
that's-
driver turned around and shot him. It's
I
like,
think
no.
that's one of those theories that probably the government created.
Yeah.
That's one of those
There's
theories
an open
to make
piece of
people look
evidence.
stupid.
There's an open piece of evidence of some kids that showed up covered in mud at a car shop that they worked at. That it was like a dry day. They showed up covered in mud, and there's a certain guy that theorized that they were hiding in a manhole and shot up at him out of the manhole, and that the car slows down in real life, and that witnesses saw the car slow down, and that there's dropped frames from the Zapruder film, and it's like these are these kinds of theories where it's like how do you dig into that and like prove that? And the answer is you have to get to primary sources. You have to get to like, is there a police report for that kid showing up? Like, is that location real? Like, can you corroborate any of this?
Right.
And the unfortunate truth is you could if you could see the files that our government was hiding from us.
Right.
Theoretically,
Well,
anyways.
they're supposed to be released soon. You know?
How likely is it that this is a coincidence? Is it even possible?
Right.
Right.
That one's very unlikely, which means they were killing witnesses. Someone was killing witnesses. I think there was people shooting from the back and the front.
Oh, yeah.
I think Lee Harvey Oswald, people want to say it's 1 or 0. I think Lee Harvey Oswald was in on it. I think Lee Harvey Oswald probably didn't shoot the president, though. But he might have. He might have hit him in the back, because there was a shot in the back, too. You know, the whole reason why they had to call this a tracheotomy is the same reason why they had to come up with a single bullet theory.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you're deep.
You got to
in this.
explain it. Well,
You know-
I'm not. I'm
You
as
know about
deep
the
as-
ricochet underneath the overpass?
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, like I'm deep enough to know the basics, but there's so many layers, and you have to read the books, you have to watch the films, you have to like
You gotta talk
see
to
the
Oliver
interviews.
Stone.
Exactly.
Oliver Stone just goes off.
And that's why I was curious to hear your takes, because you've actually talked to these people.
Oliver Stone's the best because he's been studying this forever,
Yeah.
and he can tell you exactly what's going on with Dulles and with
And he's not just been studying it forever, he's been studying the actual primary source documents themselves and like reading the real archives that are released.
I think like tour of Fort Knox would be awesome. Like a live tour of Fort Knox, we
Well-
can actually see. It's like, is the gold there or not? They say it is. Like,
imagine
is
if
it
it's
real or did somebody spray paint some lead? You know?
Imagine if it's not.
Imagine if it's not all there. Like some of it's missing. Where'd it go?
What if a lot of it's missing? What if like half of it's missing?
I mean, how do we even know?
I don't know. They said the last time they let someone look at it was decades ago.
Yeah. Well, I believe the last formal audit was in the 50s. So I'm like, okay,
Oh my god! Just think about all
maybe
the
we
other
should check
things
it
you've already-
again.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Think about all the other stuff that you pointed out. All the checks that just go out, the NGO payments, the Social Security people. Think about all that.
Yeah.
Now apply that to the gold.
No, absolutely. I just want to like emphasize the sheer madness of the government. It just because they have like magic money computers that the checks never bounce to the federal government. Like so you don't have the normal corrective mechanism that you'd have for a company or for an individual. The checks just always clear. The net result is inflation, which is effectively a tax on everyone. You know, like the Defense Department hasn't passed an audit in I don't know how many years.
7 years.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. So it's like you have to be friggin' Chuck Norris. Like only Chuck Norris could get the Defense Department to pass an audit, you know, type of thing. That's the level of skill you need, you know.
Well, that's what's so insane. If you bring it back to the idea that it's a business,
Well, yeah.
this would never be tolerated in any kind of functional business.
Exactly. So, the Pentagon will like their accounting error, like the stuff that they lose in the couch cushions is like $20-30 billion a year. They just don't know where it went. It's gone. Where'd it go? And it's gone. So
It's so insane.
it's insane.
It's so insane.
So that's why I said, like, even simple things like just requiring that that outgoing payments to the Treasury computer have a payment code and a comment of what the payment is about, and someone to call about the payment, I think will have a very powerful effect in stopping wasteful outflows and stopping fraud.
Yeah, and here's another way to look at this. Imagine if there are people like you and the Doge team out there in the world. Imagine if one of those works for an organization like USAID or any other organization and has this understanding of how much is involved, but they have evil intentions. And they're entwined in this system for decades and decades, and they've built a career and all the entanglements that come with it, and they start moving around. You could probably do it easy. It sounds like the way you've laid it out. If you were a career person who's in there forever, who knew how everything works, and you were very clever, you could make some happen. And you could probably do it in conjunction with some people that you know that are forming an NGO. Hey, let's all work together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is the resistance that you're facing.
Yeah. I think it's the biggest scam of all time.
This is not something you ever
Like
sought out
literally
to do.
the biggest scam of all
Ever.
time, ever.
Of human history.
Of human history, yeah.
Wow. I think you're right.
Yeah.
What else
Like it's
could
probably
be better?
a $1 trillion scam. There's never been a $1 trillion scam.
Now, this is not something that you ever set out to do. This is not, you didn't have this as a career aspiration. This
No.
is not.
Like this is the most absurd outcome I can possibly imagine, actually.
This is such a fascinating time because with this setup, the way it is right now, with Trump back in, after all that happened to him, and with you there, and with RFK Jr. and Tulsi and Kash Patel, it's like, this is a wild time to find out what's really going on. That's like never happened before. This is nothing like the first term.
No.
Like the first term, he had a bunch of neocons in the cabinet, and there's a bunch of shady people that he didn't know, and he had to appoint all these different people. Maybe he got some bad picks. Now he's had 4 years to stew on it.
Right.
And with you guys all going through this, we're getting an understanding of the government that we've literally never had before.
Yeah, this is a revolutionary cabinet, and maybe the most revolutionary cabinet since the first revolution. This is not a bunch of business as usual types. So this is why, like, you know, some of the standard confirmations are quite challenging, is because when you try to appoint people who are going to change the system, the system doesn't want to let them through.
But it's fascinating because it's like the vampires all out themselves. Like now everybody knows who the system is. Like if you're just lying openly about U.S. aid and then they come and hear you talk on a podcast and explain what's really going on. Like he's starving mothers. There's mothers that can't get food.
Totally false.
That's all you're hearing.
Yeah.
That's no one's talking in any of these mainstream liberal talk shows. No one is talking about all this fraud and waste.
Yeah, because we're cutting off their graft fishing. So that's what they're upset about. That's the real thing they're upset about.
These children that can read things, are they typing it out like on an iPad? Are they writing it physically? How do they do it?
Usually, so there's different forms of spelling to communicate. Often there's like a letter board, right? Sometimes it's a stencil letter board that you poke a pencil through, so you really know when you get that letter, and it's really satisfying to get the poke through. Sometimes there's like just a laminate board where you kind of point to a letter. Some individuals are typing into a spelling kind of app on an iPad, or there's different spelling like
Can they type?
AAC devices, yeah. And then there's some individuals who end up going to the QWERTY key, you know, the typical keyboard that we all type with on a keyboard.
So there's varying levels of ability in terms of using your body.
Yeah, using your body. And the thing I think why spelling has been so, there's such a stigma around spelling, and that's so bad for individuals using spelling because they're in there and they are communicating, but people have said, oh, but you need these supports, so these can't be your words, right? Like for a spelling partner, let's say, you have to kind of learn to be a communication partner. You have to learn to really understand like the mind-body disconnect and what's going on with the non-speaker in front of you. And sometimes their hand gets lost in space, so it's good to like pull the board away and put it back in again. Or sometimes you have to cue them, like, go for it. Okay, get that letter, because that will help with their motor planning, right? So those supports are critical, but people will look at those supports and say, oh, well, that must mean they're not typing independently. But to me, that's as wild as saying, oh, you need reading glasses, you can't read. No, that's a support to help you read. You can still read if you reading classes, and that's how I think of the communication
There's
partner.
still no influence in the words or letters being chosen.
No. And I think one of the things, but the stigma I think that really started for spelling was facilitated communication. Actually, this is like the first thing you asked, so we're coming full circle. So for a long time, there was just no hope of getting people who weren't verbal, non-speakers out. There just wasn't. And then all of a sudden, facilitated communication came along. And it was developed, I think, in Australia, I think. But this was ideas of, put some pressure on someone's wrist so they can really feel where they're at in space, right? Like, they'll be able to spell. And it was a miracle. I mean, it was all over the news. This was great. And some of the first parents that were using facilitated communication started reporting telepathy involved. And this was at Syracuse University in the 90s. Syracuse knew about this and started kind of bearing that information. And there was a lot of you'll be let go if you're teaching this and you're talking about this. So there was kind of big cover up. So this was new. This is not new that this was going on. But then there were some claims of sexual assault. There's awful things that happened where what was being claimed didn't happen. And so people started blaming facilitated communication. Oh, well, maybe they're pushing their hand or doing this or doing that. And I think for a lot of people who train in facilitated communication, you're using your hand to put pressure so the individual knows where the body is in space, but you're not pushing their hand. But there probably are some cases where that had happened. Well, anyway, so then it got kind of just stigmatized, right? It's pseudoscience. And then, so spelling evolved into these forms where it was like, no touch, do not touch. And so many of those spelling groups now are helping individuals, and the big tenet of this is you cannot touch them, and that's where spelling's at now, is that you learn to communicate and there's no touch involved. But I'm one of these people that thinks like whatever the individual needs to help them communicate,
Right.
it's okay. If you need a little touch so you know where your arm is,
Right.
or sometimes it helps you go faster if there's a little push, like I think go for it, help these individuals get out there.
Right. This touch is not guiding them towards specific letters. This touch is just an affirmation, just to help them.
Yeah.
To help them relax, to help them connect.
Yeah, and it was really, on set sometimes, because every once in a while, some parents like hold the board and hold it there for their child, and we would use these like dry erase, markers on the screen to be like, is the board moving? And it wasn't.
It's just the fact that the child can read hieroglyphics is insane. I would love to see, like cuneiform or Sumerian in particular. We had an ancient language scholar named Wes Huffon, and he was explaining how a lot of these interpretations of like the Sumerian text, which is the oldest version of a lot of these like biblical stories. In fact, he was like, I can't read it. He goes, I can read all these different languages, but this one is so different than all the others, and it doesn't have anything that's like it. Like a lot of these other languages, you can find similarities in the way they're structured, the way the sentences are structured. There's none of that with Sumerian. It's like, this is a wacky language.
Yeah.
He's like, I can't read it. And he was brilliant.
Yeah.
So when you talk to a guy like that, who's humble about it,
Right,
but also like very well read,
Yeah.
he's like, all right, I don't know what's going on.
What does it?
Give that to the kid.
So
You know?
interesting.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of opportunity to really get into that with these nonverbal kids if you find one that, is there more than one that has this ability to do this?
I can only comment on the people I've met, but I think of all the people that we're talking to a lot, for the project and now the film, yeah, it's definitely more than one. At least I know 15 or 20 who seem to know various languages that haven't been taught.
15 or 20.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and one of the earlier children Dr. Powell was studying, this boy knew really kind of odd languages like Russian and Japanese, and I think he was 5 or 6, and could just speak in different languages and knew different languages. It's absolutely remarkable.
Wow.
Yeah.
And is there even the most out there theory about what's going on?
This is the thing, right? There hasn't been a lot of research around this phenomena, and I think I can only go again off of what spellers have said. One thing is that they say that there's a neurology behind language, right? The most baseline language is not with words. Words are these 3D objects that we attach to these thoughts and feelings, and that is the thing that they can understand, which makes sense. That would be what telepathy is, right? If you're not using words.
Well, that is
Right.
our version of telepathy. We
Right.
make noise with our mouth, and then you can read my mind.
Right,
Sort
yeah,
of,
kind of.
In a clumsy way.
Yeah, but if you think of prayer, right, that's telepathy. If people who come back from a near-death experience and they say they have these communications with someone, you don't have a body, that's telepathy, right? Like, if a medium is talking to someone or getting messages from someone who's passed, like, that's telepathy. So it seems like the baseline, to me, like, all of this is proven for me that we have a soul, or there's at least, if that word is triggering to someone, that at least there's a conscious.
One of the things that a lot of people have talked about, and I had the LDS Church issued a statement sort of critiquing the show and critiquing me, which I appreciate, and I understand why members of the Mormon community would be offended by the portrayal of Brigham Young and the Mountain Meadows Massacre, which was the event that we used as kind of our inciting incident for the first episode, which was a real massacre that the Mormons committed on a group of pioneers who were heading out west, where a Mormon militia with some Paiute Indians attacked and murdered about 140 men, women, and children. And we present that in the film, and we present Brigham Young in the film. And many Mormons, it's interesting to start reading all the debate about it. A lot of Mormons were saying, yeah, this is exactly what happened, and this is a part of our history. And there were other Mormons, particularly the seniors in Salt Lake City, were saying this is not what happened, this is not fair. But what I find interesting about the Mormon church and about kind of how we present it is I've had a lot of people come to me and go, dude, I never knew the Mormons were such savages.
So gangster.
They were gangster. Brigham Young was, in my opinion, a gangster, a survivor, a warrior. And for anyone who follows Mormon history, you know, they started in upstate New York with this young kid, Joseph Smith, who found these tablets and basically rewrote the Bible and started getting this following. And then they moved to Missouri and they got popular. And then there was an extermination order and it was kill all the Mormons. So they fled to Illinois and tried to survive up there at this place called Nauvoo that was going to be their, you know, peaceful place to live. And Joseph Smith was murdered and they were run out of Illinois, and Brigham Young led these dudes, men and women, on foot across the plains in the winter to Salt Lake Valley, which was this desolate wasteland. And he said, oh, we'll stay here. They'll never come for us here. And they started coming. And Brigham Young basically said, okay, we're not taking it anymore. He built his own army, the Nauvoo Legion, and he said, we're staying here. We won't mess with you, but if you come after us, we will fight. And that point, I think, is interesting. And I think Brigham Young, who survived longer than all of them, and if you go to Salt Lake City, he did a pretty good job, right? Like, that's a big city, man. And,
it's a great city.
And I don't know. I respect the Mormon religion. I respect Brigham Young, and I feel like we make him look like a gangster in American Primeval, and I don't know. He's a survivor, and I respect that.
Well, this is the reality of historical figures. You're talking about a different time in the world, and it was a particularly barbaric time. And if you wanted to survive, this is what you had to do. And we're not talking about the United States in 2025. We're talking about the Wild West. And you're talking about a persecuted group of religious people. Like, if you want to survive, if you want your children to survive, like,
You gotta fight.
you gotta take up arms. That's just how it is.
I mean, the polygamy was a thing, and you know, we do touch upon that a bit in Primeval. I think Brigham Young had 40-odd wives.
Nice.
And that.
How do you keep up with two?
I don't
I don't
know.
really understand how someone could have two wives.
That's a whole nother conversation. I mean, so to think about Brigham Young having, 45 wives, okay, good luck, I guess. Right? But that was one of the issues, the polygamy that people that were non-Mormons back in the 1850s were using to attack the religion, and that was something that was the polygamy has obviously been since outlawed, and the church has cut itself off from that policy.
But what is the backlash, though? If they've admitted that this massacre took place, and it's part of the historical record, the book is for sale in this Mormon theater, what is the backlash?
The biggest single issue, if you get into the weeds, and I think it's an interesting point of debate, is whether or not Brigham Young knew and authorized this massacre. And the way the massacre played out in real life was different how we did it in the film. In the film, we did it in one swell move, like it just happens. And, we filmed it in one shot, and it's pretty intense, visceral, very fast events, and then it's over. In reality, this wagon train was surrounded by the Mormon militia, the Nauvoo Legion, and some of these Native Americans. And it went on for about 4 or 5 days. And the Mormons dressed up as Native Americans. This is where it gets kind of, some Mormons aren't thrilled that we pointed out the fact that they were trying to put the blame on the Native Americans. So they literally, Mormons dressed up as Indians to confuse the pioneers, in case there were survivors, to say, oh, it wasn't Mormons, it was the Native Americans that did this. So they don't love that. But what the Mormons claim, or some in the Mormon church claim, is that during the 3 or 4 days that the siege took place, before the actual massacre, and the details of the massacre are really tough, because the Mormons pretended they were accepting a surrender. So they went in with white flags and they said, okay, the men walk this way, the women and children, we're going to walk you to safety because the Indians are going to kill you. The Mormons said, we're here to save you. So they started walking them out, and then on someone's signal, they just killed everyone. Really bad. But the issue of whether Brigham Young knew about it or didn't know about it, we imply that he knew about it. We never say that he authorized it, but we imply that he did know about it. And what many of the defenders of Brigham Young will say is that there was a letter written where Brigham Young said, "Do not harm these pioneers. Don't kill them." But the letter was sent by horse while the event was already occurring. So I've had people say he knew that that letter wasn't going to make it there in time. He was covering himself. Oh, hey, I wrote a letter.
The other thing they're going to talk about is UAPs. They're going to release all the UAP information. So you're the guy to ask about this. What if any possibility is there that there is some sort of advanced propulsion system technology that's being worked on in secret? And that they're trying to cover this up with this talk of aliens and alien tech and not of this world. And is it possible that there's some sort of very secret program that's going on in cahoots with some defense contractors that are developing advanced propulsion systems that they're using for these drones?
I mean, SpaceX, you know, my company SpaceX has the most advanced rocket technology in the world. I think I'd know.
Right.
And to the best of my knowledge, there is not any magic. There's not like some super advanced propulsion technology.
There have been people who have theorized different gravity drives and different things. Is there anything that's ever gotten past the theoretical stage?
No.
Nothing.
Well, there's nothing even that I'm aware of that works in theory. It's not like I would like this to exist, to be clear. I would like this to exist. And I have from a security clearance standpoint, I have top secret. I have the equivalent of like an all-access pass from a security clearance standpoint. So I don't think they're hiding it from me, basically. I don't think they could.
Unless it's completely in these weapons manufacturing corporations.
I mean, I know these weapons manufacturers, like Boeing, Lockheed, Northrop. I mean, yeah, they do some interesting things, but they do not have. There's no breakthrough that they have.
So
I'm confident they do not have a breakthrough.
when you hear people
like, why don't they just compete with SpaceX and make a better rocket? In which case,
right.
they can make. Why are they holding back on making a lot of money from beating SpaceX with better rockets?
My thought was that what if it's just a drone and you can't have a biological entity inside of it because it just bursts from the speed that it's moving at? That a human couldn't tolerate the amount of force. So they're just drones.
I don't think so.
So what do you think people like Ryan Graves and Commander David Fravor...
I want cool things to exist.
Right.
Like, say, like, do I want UFOs to exist? Yes, I want UFOs to exist because that would be really interesting.
Of course, everybody does.
Yeah.
It'll be cool.
It's a more boring world where UFOs don't exist, or like flying, like advanced propulsion stuff doesn't exist. If it doesn't exist, that's more boring. It'd be more interesting. If it did exist, I'd like it to exist. I hope we find something, but I have not seen, SpaceX launches 90% of all satellite mass to orbit. So if you take all of Earth's rocket launches, my company has a 90% market share of Earth. China does about 5%, and the rest of the world does, including the Boeing, Lockheed, Northrop, and everyone, does 5%. So why wouldn't they use this to defeat SpaceX?
Yeah, makes
Why
sense.
would they hold
No,
back?
listen, that's why I asked you. It would make sense. What do you think that these people are
We're
seeing?
launching a rocket every 2 days.
But what do you think these people are seeing? When you have reliable people like Commander David Fravor, who had that infamous Tic Tac experience off the coast of San Diego, where they got this thing on video, they tracked it going 50,000 feet above sea level to 50 feet in like a second.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and then they also have video evidence of this thing accelerating at a great speed. Eyewitness accounts from 2 different
Okay.
jets.
Sure. I mean, does anyone have a high-res video or photo of this thing?
Well, there's a video of this thing where they're locked onto it, and then it takes off. It shoots off.
Is it
out of the
high-res?
frame. No,
Okay.
it's like whatever the systems they used on fighter jets in 2004. Essentially like Windows 95.
I mean, there's like somebody did a curve of like the resolution of UFOs and the resolution of cameras. UFO resolution has stayed flat,
Right.
despite megapixels in cameras going like, super high.
Well, according to Christopher Mellon,
Why are they still blurry?
Christopher Mellon, who worked in the State Department, said that they have high-resolution photos and videos of these things, and that's all that he's seen it. It's all locked away. Whenever people say that to me, I'm like, don't even tell me that then. Don't, unless you have.
Just leak it for God's sake.
Put it out there.
Yeah.
Like, let it slip.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple photos. They're grainy. There's not one thing that I've ever looked at and go, "Oh, that's it."
Look,
That's
I mean,
what I've been
you,
looking
you
for.
could ask our Grok AI right now to create a high-res image of,
Yeah.
an alien spacecraft, over Austin,
Yeah.
and it's going to do a great job.
Yeah.
So why would we not have at least that?
Right. Yeah, but I want to believe. That's the problem. My brain starts going, "Oh, come on, this is no fun." I want it to be real. I want there to be at least be some advanced propulsion system. If not, like, what are all these people seeing? Like, what is happening if we're not being occasionally visited by things that are smart enough to hide?
We might be. It's just that these aliens are very subtle.
Yeah, you keep saying that. It's a good line.
I mean,
It's a solid line because it's pretty accurate.
I just want to see some high-res video of aliens.
Look, how are they just evading all the cameras? If you think about that, and the ones that you do get them on, it's just like some faraway light that's moving weird, and there could be a lot of things, but I want to believe.
Yeah, I mean, there've been like multiple times where, the Air Force and Navy has called SpaceX and said they think they've seen aliens, and we're like, was it at this time, on this date, in this location? They're like, yes. How do you know? That's us.
But there's been a lot of
That's
that.
our satellites. Those
Yeah.
are our satellites.
Why
And they're
are-
like, no, they're not. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
they're definitely our
Oh
satellites.
yeah, people see the SpaceX satellites all the time whizzing by.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
our satellites, and
Yeah.
they are moving at 16,000 miles an hour. So
Yeah.
pretty fast.
And there's also stuff that the United States government does have that gets mistaken for UFOs. I remember the first time I saw a stealth bomber. We were filming Fear Factor. It was like right after 2003, like right after the war had broken off. And they were flying a stealth bomber down in Palmdale. I was like, holy, if I didn't know what that was, I would 100% think that's
Yeah,
from
yeah.
another world. When you see
Stealth
that thing
bombers look
flying,
cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Really cool. I mean,
They just announced they're not going to build the plant.
yeah, I read that.
I did a big favor for our country by doing that, and I'm not even there yet. To me, the most beautiful word, and I've said this for the last couple of weeks, in the dictionary today, and it is the word tariff. It's more beautiful than love. It's more beautiful than it. It's the most beautiful word. This country can become rich with the proper use of tariffs. It'll
Did
keep
you just float out the idea of getting rid of income taxes and replacing it with tariffs?
Well, okay.
Were you serious about that?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Because ready? Our country was the richest in relatively in the 1880s and 1890s. A president who was assassinated named McKinley. He was the tariff king. He spoke beautifully of tariffs. His language was very beautiful. We will not allow the enemy to come in and take our jobs and take our factories and take our workers and take our families unless they pay a big price. And the big price is tariffs. And he'd speak like that, but he was right. And then around in the early 1900s, they switched over stupidly to, frankly, an income tax. And you know why? Because countries were putting a lot of pressure on America. We don't want to pay tariffs. Please don't. Believe me, they control our politicians. If you look at the kind of numbers that these guys make, then and now, but we had a commission meeting in the, I think it was 1887. Think of this problem. We were so rich. We had so much money. We didn't know what to do, so they set up a blue ribbon commission on tariffs. And the sole purpose is what to do with all the money we had. We were so rich because we were taxing other people for coming in and taking our jobs. And China does it. That's what China did. If you want to open a factory and sell cars, if you build a factory here or have a factory, they don't take our cars. They wouldn't take our cars. But if you build a plant in China, you can do that. Elon did that. By the way, Elon is great. That guy is such a great guy. I think you're a fan of
I love
Elon.
him.
He is from a different planet. He's the greatest guy.
Did they have magic
Believe they-
powers?
I know.
Did the folklore versions have magic powers, or were they just
I
dwarves?
imagine that they're probably based on the real life people that they then magicked up because, and my evidence is like Snow White itself. And
It says this type of supernatural being in Germanic folklore. Accounts of dwarves vary significantly throughout
Dwarfs with
history.
an F.
Dwarfs vary significantly throughout history. They are commonly, but not exclusively, presented as living in the mountains or stones and being skilled craftsmen. Huh.
And only males. So dwarfs with an F is the fantasy one,
Okay.
and they're
So
all men.
dwarfs are all a bunch of gay guys,
Yeah.
little tiny gay guys hanging out.
Well, they
waiting for that
originally
lady
were.
to show up.
It was like 7 non-binaries or something.
But here's the question: for the new movie, what did they do? Did they? Because what I had heard was that they CGI'd things in there.
Yeah, look at them. How bad it looks.
Can I see what it looks like? Is there a video?
A lot of people make videos about why the CGI seems worse than when it first came out, and that's because these studios are working people. Disney's notorious. Disney's one of the
Get a
worst
video,
companies ever
Jamie, so I can
existed.
see what it looks like. It's kind of sucks that a kid gets put into the position like that, where they're talking about politics and talking about.
It's look, if you put your kids in auditions, you are trafficking your children, so you know.
Oh wow, that does look bad. Oh, it doesn't look real at all.
Yeah, and then like they do all the work while she's dancing around being a leader or whatever. The script was
Wait a
screwed
minute, how
from the
much
start.
did this cost? They should get Doge looking at this movie. They spent $250 million making that movie. But imagine you spend $250 million and you get some young girl and you don't kind of talk to her about like, hey, don't get political. You're young, and I know you have opinions about things, but should be just about the movie.
Well,
It's just
just to defend Big Head Girl, let me tell you something. The message of the movie is to be that bitch. That's the message that they wrote a script that's telling girls, I don't need nobody tells me I'm a 20-year-old girl, so obviously I should run my mouth all the time. That's the theme of the new Snow White.
no, really.
Yes. Now,
It's not the same story.
no. So now they put it all on her. Now they failed. Here's what happened. She made the cardinal error of saying Free Palestine on Twitter. So she could say all that men are bad and it's this and that, but once you do that, now they put the entire weight of the failure upon her. When really, it's like making Jimmy Fallon apologize for doing a Chris Rock impression when Lauren and a team of lawyers and consultants decided if it was okay the amount of brown they put on him to simulate Chris Rock.
Right.
You think Jimmy Fallon made that call? Well, he's got to sit there and apologize to a white. Robin DiAngelo comes on. I'm not watching this. Am I dreaming? And he's like, he's clearly drunk, and I don't blame him. And he's like, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. She's like, you see, Jimmy, this weird nun lady is like giving him a lecture.
This was like 3 years ago. I'd retired from the military and then started having seizures. So then I found a neurologist, the drug that they gave me, the number one side effect was seizures from this pharmaceutical company. So I kind of looked around and I found this guy, a functional medicine guy, and he got me on methylene blue to start off. And I know Mel Gibson was on here talking about it. And that instantly stopped everything. And some other stuff.
It was a fabric dye, right? right?
Yeah, in 1890.
How weird.
And it,
Who the f drank it first? Who's that guy? Make blue jeans out of that? Huh. What do it taste like?
yeah,
What if I drink it every day if it affects my health?
it tastes like chewing an aspirin.
I'd take it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I take it every day as well. And
RFK Jr. told me about it.
yeah, man, it's fantastic. And so this guy's injecting, in 1890, injects these rats with it and then does an autopsy on these things. And their brain, the brainstem, every single nerve is blue. So he discovered this methylene blue has an affinity for neuronal tissue. So he says, well, it's sucking into neurons. What's it doing? So we could talk about it if you want to, but
Sure.
how it's working and working in the body. So we started putting it in humans, and we found out it's an MAOI, which is
Monoamine oxide.
yeah, which helps with depression and anxiety and all kinds of light stress and stuff.
Does it cause side effects if you're taking any drug that you shouldn't take with an MAOI?
There are some studies that have been recalled that said you can't take it with SSRIs because you develop serotonin syndrome. But they did recall the study as far as I'm aware. And it is so incredible that it acts as an electron donor to mitochondria, especially your neuronal mitochondria. So it helps you produce more ATP, and it helps you get rid of this stuff called reactive oxygen species. So you have an oxygen molecule, it should have 2 hydrogens on it. And your body's job is to convert stuff into water, so you can do that. So if you get an oxygen molecule, it's got 4 or 5, 1, it's a reactive oxygen, which we call free radicals. So methylene blue goes in there and balances a lot of those things out in your brain and your nervous system. So it is a miracle. It's been proven for 100 years. It's one of the most well-proven drugs out there.
Well, what's the side effects of it? Are there any?
Not a bunch.
I would imagine if you're taking an MAOI,
There,
there's why going on there.
yeah, like if you mix it with anything that has tyramine in it, like aged cheeses, red wine, you're not supposed to mix it. If you're on a high dose though, but you're probably taking 1 milligram per kilogram, and you weigh probably 75 kilograms.
What's that one?
No, you're probably 189, 190.
Close.
Okay.
Yeah, close.
So you're about
We'll have it.
okay. And so you take maybe 40 milligrams a day to 80 milligrams a day.
And you put it in water, is that what you do?
No, I have these little tropes. It's like the consistency of a Starburst.
Oh, okay.
And you just cut them up and they're 40 milligrams each. You obviously got to swallow them really quick or your teeth are going to get for an entire day.
Yeah, it's a pretty potent dye. I see it in my pee.
Yeah. Well, I had to change the toilets in my house to black toilets because my kids take it, my wife takes it.
Jesus, everybody takes it.
But like if you go to a party and you forget to flush, everybody just thinks that there's
It's one of those supplements that I take. I'm like, you sure? Like every time I take it, I'm like, are you sure? Like I drink it in water. I take a little eyedropper and I squirt it in water and drink it. No, Gary Brecker told me about it. I should correct that. He told me to take it with red light therapy. That's what it was about.
Did he tell you why it all works?
He probably did, but I probably forgot.
Well, it's
Why does
blue.
it work for red light therapy?
So anything that's blue means that it absorbs red and reflects blue light. So if you're in a red light therapy machine, all your neurons are soaking up way more red light than they otherwise would without methylene. So it's fantastic. It's like 600x the effectiveness of red light therapy.
Really?
I'm making that up, but it is a
Sounds good.
significant. Yeah, it's a significant increase.
How weird is it to be essentially a brain expert and get a brain disease?
It was horrifying because I know where this is going to go. Your hippocampus, your memory center of your brain, is eating itself. And during a seizure, you can lose up to about 1 million neurons a second. And like the seizures were like 1.5 minutes long. You're not like shaking on the floor. A temporal lobe seizure, you're just kind of like, you're just out. Like you're
You just
unconscious.
seize up like Mitch McConnell.
Yeah, like you turn into a little zombie, your head falls down. And, at the end of the day, I tried so many different things to fix it and stop these seizures. I was at a point of 9 seizures a day.
Jesus.
And I was desperate.
And you think this is because of the medication that they gave to cause the seizures, or is this just a?
I never took it.
You Okay. So you had seizures, but the medication, why would they give you something that has a side effect of seizures
I don't know.
if you're getting seizures?
And I don't know why I mean, you hear so much about these medical schools getting paid off by companies and stuff that don't really have our best interests at heart. And I think that methylene blue is, you shouldn't have to tell a doctor about methylene blue. I think everybody should know that. And you can get it on Amazon. I get mine from this company called Mito, and it's fantastic. And it's changed my life. I would have been gone.
What's the root cause of this disease? Do we know? Do you know what's going on?
So there's two factors. You have a genetic predisposition. So you have this thing in your genes called the APOE4 allele.
Okay. That's the same thing that causes you to get CT.
And yeah, Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And if you have that,
I
plus
shouldn't say causes you, but
yeah,
it's one of those ones where if you get hit in the head a lot, it's not a good thing to have.
right. And then I did 20 years in the military. So being around explosions and all kinds of gunfire and all that kind of stuff, they said it's probably caused some kind of concussive syndrome.
Yeah, that's a real issue, right? Because people think of concussions only as like you getting hit, but it's not. It's any kind of jolting to your body. My friend Mark Gordon works with a lot of soldiers and people. Do you know the Mike Tyson story?
No.
So Mike Tyson, when he was 13, so Mike Tyson had a terrible childhood, Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. There's just like horrible neighborhood crime and, in and out of detention center. He gets adopted when he's 13 by this guy, Customato, who's one of the greatest trainers of all time, but also a hypnotist. So Customato starts hypnotizing Mike Tyson when he's 13 years old.
Oh my God.
And when he talks to him about fighting, he's like, you don't exist, only the task. So all of the things like, what, maybe I'm not good enough, maybe I'm this, maybe I'm that, maybe I'm a fraud, maybe you don't exist. It's only the task. You're going to be the greatest heavyweight champion of all time.
That's such a great.
And if Cuss didn't die, he had an unbelievable, spectacular career, but you can tell the difference when Cuss is gone. He doesn't have that mentor anymore, he doesn't have that leadership, and eventually it kind of falls apart for him. He wins the title when Cuss has already been dead, but then defends the title. He was just unstoppable. He was so much better than everybody else, but slowly but surely up until the Buster Douglas fight, you see like this deterioration of his discipline and sort of just resting on his laurels and fear. Everyone was so terrified of him. By the time they got into the ring, they were already beat.
Yeah.
You see the look in their eye when he's staring at you. And so, if Cuss was still alive, like, who knows what he would have accomplished? Who knows? Probably would have never lost. If Cuss stayed alive, if Cuss was like slightly younger and was able to make it with him deep into his career, who knows?
Yeah.
But hypnotized him when he was 13.
And that's early. I mean, you're still getting
Oh,
your formative identity and beliefs about the
Also,
world.
you all of a sudden have love in your life. All of a sudden you have respect. All of a sudden you have people who appreciate you for what you do. And so you really like dig into this thing. So Jim Jacobs was his manager, and Jim Jacobs is also an archivist. He has the greatest archive of boxing films in the world, especially at the time. So he's got all the old fighters, Stanley Ketchel and Jack Johnson and Jack Dempsey. And so Mike Tyson, when he's not training, is watching the greatest boxers of all time on film, which nobody has access to. Most boxers, you are as good as the gym you train in. If you're training in a gym with Tommy Hearns, like, damn, he is so good. And you learn by being around him and you see what he does and try to emulate it. But the level of the best guys in the gym, it's always very top down. The best gyms always have some assassins at the very top. World champions, top of the food chain guys, and everybody else sort of like follows their beat. And you absorb. Well, Mike Tyson was absorbing from everybody. He was absorbing from Joe Louis and Sugar Ray Robinson. He was watching everybody. Archie Moore. He was watching all the greats. Just hours and hours and hours and hours of studying films.
So it was proximity. So
it was everything.
He got proximity and like exposure to all that when nobody else.
And genetics. When he was 13 years old, he was 190 pounds. Yeah. Teddy Atlas used to take him to what they call smokers. Smokers are like these amateur sort of unregulated fights. And they would say, how old is he? And he'd say 13. Like, bullshit. And you'd be like, how old do you think he is? He's like 16. So they put him in with 16-year-olds and he knocked them out.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he was knocking everybody out. He was just a genetic freak on top of being very intelligent but never really applied to anything other than boxing. Fully absorbed with boxing. Has a trainer who's one of the greatest trainers of all time. Trained Floyd Patterson, Jose Torres. I mean, Customato was a legendary world champion trainer. And then on top of that, he's a hypnotist. So he's like deeply involved in the psyche of his fighters. And he's a mentor figure to this kid. And so you have that combination of things. And you have that guy, the greatest. Mike Tyson at 79 at the age of 13. That's him at 13.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, look at the size of his biceps. Bro, look at his biceps. Look at his right bicep at 13. That is
that difference.
insane. I know. Muhammad Ali above that is
Oh my
12 years old
God.
and Tyson 13 and built like a tank. That is so crazy.
It's a monster.
Oh, everything was perfect. It was the perfect storm. Intelligence, genetics, training, proximity, and he was around great fighters as well. He was in gyms in the Catskills with some of the best fighters of his era.
Does he credit like psychedelics for his like this transformation that he's made?
He does talk about it. Yeah, he does talk about it. I'm sure it had an impact on him. That and marijuana, both those things had an impact on him.
I mean, he's got to be just fighting for that long. The brain's going through so much. You've got to come back to earth. It's like a dude coming off a 5-year deployment or something. At least, like you've got to reestablish yourself back to a normal.
Yes.
And I've heard him just talk about it once, where he talked about, I think it was just psilocybin. But that saved me from a lot of really crazy stuff as well. But I think he is just a guy who knows. I would be terrified. Like if I was a cop and pulled him over and he said, "Who are you?" Like, I'd be like,
Okay.
yeah.
When I first met him, well, I met him before this, but when he first did the podcast, he was not working out at all, and he was smoking weed all day long, and he was like silly and peaceful and relaxed, and he said he didn't want to work out because if he did, he would reignite his ego, and he didn't want to do that. And then the second time I saw him was when he was preparing for the Roy Jones fight, and he had lost like 100 pounds, he was shredded, and like all his muscles up and he looked terrified. It was like, and Jamie and I were like, that's a totally different person. Like from the first episode he did to the second episode, completely different person. Because he was Mike Tyson again. He was getting ready to fight again. He was terrified. And this is Mike Tyson again at 50, right? So imagine what Mike Tyson at 22 was like. I mean, it had to be terrifying.
I bet he won so many fights just psychologically.
Oh yeah.
Just standing across the ring looking at that guy, even if I was a good fighter.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah, everybody
why am
was terrified of him.
you're standing like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, he had an aura, and all the greats have auras like that. Roy Jones had that aura in his prime too.
Well, we found just with a basic search of the Social Security database that there were 20 million dead people marked as alive.
But were they getting money?
Some of them are getting money.
What percentage of them?
It isn't clear. We're actually trying to run this through. I was trying to get an answer right before the show. What it looks like is that most of the fraud is not coming from Social Security payments directly, but because they're marked as alive in the Social Security database, that they can then get disability, unemployment, sort of fake medical payments, and other things because they're marked as alive in the Social Security database. So it looks like it's a bank. The fraud is a bank shot essentially. They bank shot into Social Security. They just do an "Are you alive?" check, and then get fraudulent payments from every other part of the government. Yeah. And this exploits the fundamental weakness in the government is that the various government databases, they don't talk to each other. They talk to each other very poorly in a very limited way. So the way that the system gets exploited is by taking advantage of the poor communication between the various databases in the government. give you an example of like what's happening, say, Treasury, which is improving rapidly. The main payments computer is called PAM, payment accounts master database or something like that. But everyone calls it PAM. That's responsible for almost $5 trillion payments a year, roughly $1 billion an hour. And when we came there, we're looking at the PAM, and it's like the payments have no. You could put a payment through with no payment categorization code and no description on the payment, like basically untraceable blank checks. This is the kind of thing that if it was done as a public company, the company would be immediately delisted and the executive team would be thrown in prison. But this is just normal at the government. So we said, okay, our recommendation to the Treasury and the Federal Reserve is like, we need to make the payment categorization codes mandatory, not optional, and there needs to be an explanation. We're not judging the quality of the explanation, but there should be some explanation for what this payment is for above nothing. That's a radical change to the system that is being implemented now. My guess is that probably saves $100 billion a year.
Jesus Christ.
That's well, I might rough order of magnitude.
Where
Like,
was that money going?
well, so this is where you get into the sort of gray boundary between waste and fraud. If money is sent to a person or organization from the government, and you didn't really deserve it, but the government still sent it to you, is that waste or fraud?
Right.
So, I mean, there's a lot of payments where someone just approved the payment, but then that payment officer changed jobs or retired or died, and the payments just keep going. You know, it's like if you forget to pay your gym membership or something like that.
Right.
Now imagine it's not the gym membership. You said your gym membership's $20 billion a year or something, you know. But they forgot to turn it off. That's happening at scale in the government. It's totally nuts, is what I'm saying.
So insane.
Yes, it's totally insane. So
What did you expect when you went in? Did you
I
expect
thought
it would be
bad.
like this?
I thought it would be bad, but I did not think it would be as bad as this. I mean, look, the good news is that it's a target-rich environment for saving money. It's not like if it was a very well-run ship, if it was very efficient, it would be hard to improve. But it's not efficient, so therefore it is actually relatively easy to improve. Let's just say it's not rocket science. You know, I know rocket science. So it's a lot of mundane things. And some of the things are like so crazy that we didn't even know to ask about that, because we just assumed, like, you know, payments out of the Treasury computer would have a payment categorization code and it would have some explanatory note saying what the payment's for. The idea that it would be just untraceable blank checks didn't occur to us at first.
Jesus.
So, anyway, just
So is that one of the
Yeah.
things that accounts to this? There's this
The Joe Rogan experience.
We thought if we could do something that could bring back the dire wolf, also help wolf conservation and bring people from like sci-fi, fantasy, and kids more into science and into the conversation around conservation, we thought it was a cool idea, but we had no idea if it would pull off.
Is there dead dire wolves that were trapped in permafrost, or is
No, most of the dire wolf skulls out there, there's thousands of them in La Brea Tar Pit. So if you go there, they have this beautiful wall, but because of heat and acidification, there isn't anything that's protected. Like there's nothing you can get from that. But about 6 years ago, a group, including Beth Shapiro, our chief science officer, sequenced a tooth that was found in a cave, just a single tooth, right? And in that tooth, they actually found they actually got 0.15x or coverage of the genome, so they got about 50% of the genome. But that's not really enough. You need to get up to about 10x. You can read the entire genome about 10 different times, so that even if there are gaps, you understand enough of the core kind of coding regions that you
Well, is this done by AI?
It's in by AI and software, yeah. So we built part of our business model is building technologies to solve these really complicated problems that are much harder to solve than just solving them for existing species. Open sourcing that for conservation for free, but then also taking those technologies that we can monetize for humans and spinning them out. So our first computational analysis company was called Form Bio, and we actually spun it out of it.
So you have this too. You have 1.5.
Yeah, 1.5, so 15% of the genome.
Okay.
And so I went to Beth, who was only an advisor at the time, and said, "Could you resample the tooth?" And she's like, "It's like half an inch long. She's like, it's destructive sampling. Like, it's going to ruin us." Well, could we scour the other museums and see if it's even possible? So we lucked out, and that tooth's 13,000 years old. The skull itself is 73,000 years old. Not exactly sure, but it was found in a riverbed, and it wasn't found in a riverbed at the mouth of the cave. So it wasn't found like in the permafrost, but it also wasn't found in like acidification. So there's a bone in all of us called the petrous bone, which is insanely dense, and it doesn't change a lot from after you're born. It's a great DNA source, better than teeth, better than anything. It's like in the inner ear kind of head area. And so we got permission from the museum to very carefully drill into the back of the underside of the skull and remove the petrous bone to see if we could get DNA. And we got really lucky between resampling the first and the skull. We ended up getting about 13 to 14x coverage, so that's more than we needed to potentially bring back. Well, and then we got a knock on the door. And so we took that DNA.
Can I ask you before we even start with this?
Yeah.
The aggressive reporters, is it you're playing God? How do you have the right to do this?
So it's been a journey. Okay, so the journey that we've had is when we started the business, we didn't have any scientists. Like, we just didn't, right? They're like, this is tech pros wanting to see cool animals, and they've only got $16 million in funding, and they don't have any scientists. Haha. So that was phase one. Right. And then we're like, oh well, as an entrepreneur, my job is to hire much smarter people than me. I do not. Gary's got me on quite a kick. So, yeah. So, I mean, I'm bringing it for you. Well, I'm not saying they're bad for you. I'm just saying that
Allegedly.
Yeah.
I don't think
So.
this is the last probably bad for you.
Yeah, but you gotta do what you gotta. Everyone's got their life.
So, my question, if I was going to grow you, if I was a reporter, like, what right do you have to invade the natural process of nature and to inject your curiosity and your ability to create new life?
I think that we've become the apex predator on this planet, and we inject our curiosity in choices every day that we overfish the ocean, we overhunt something. In the case of the thylacine, the Australian government put a bounty on its head and killed it off, right? And every time we cut down the rainforest, every time we drink hydrogenated water, we are, playing God on some level, right? We are changing. Humans are very good at changing the natural flow.
Okay, so this is what we'll just get to it. You made a fucking dire wolf.
I didn't. Our team, our incredible team, made 3 dire wolves so far.
Let's see the photos. Jeremy, bust out some photos. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare yourself, because this is truly fucking crazy.
Yeah.
That's the pop.
Yeah. So this is so that's actually Romulus. So we have 2 boys, Romulus and Remus, and then we have Khaleesi, who's the new girl. So this is Romulus and Remus. So funny story about this. So Peter Jackson from Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson from Lord of the Rings was actually one of our investors, and he has this huge museum in Wellington that he's building for all these movie props. And he's like, I was sitting in Peter's house with me and his partner Fran, and I was like, I showed him the video of them howling, started tearing up. He goes, "This is the first time I've heard a dire wolf, or anyone's heard a dire wolf in 10,000 years." He physically, emotionally got chills and started crying. And then he's like, "Well, I do have the throne." I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I bought the throne last week at auction, at a private auction for like Sotheby's or someone, right?" And so So he did, and it just happened to be where the wolves were doing their vet checkup. Like, talk about cosmic coincidence. Incredible, right? And so, what you don't see in this photo is you don't see the fact that we have American Humane Society there. We had 3 veterinary people. We had 6 people from our animal care
When you say
team.
checkup, you don't vaccinate these little guys, do you?
They do get because of viruses that they can get from the soil. At 8 weeks, they do get basic virus. They do get basic vaccine.
Were you concerned about that? I mean, you have this animal that you just...
Yeah, so these are staying on, like these are not going back into the wild, right?
Right, not yet.
Right now, they're on a 2,000-acre secure, expansive ecological preserve with 24/7 care. We have an animal hospital that we built. People are always like, you guys raise so much money. Well, because we didn't just spend it on the labs, you have to spend it on animal care, the facilities. And
Yeah.
whatnot.
Let's see the photo of the actual grown ones. Because they're...
So this is Romulus and Remus playing in the snow on the preserve when they are 3 months old.
So at
this is-
3 months, how big are they?
3 months, they were north of 45 pounds.
Wow.
So, they just get like as they've aged, they've just got more and more beautiful.
So let's go to the adults, because the adults have crazy characteristics
so-
that you were saying that you didn't even know that
We
they have.
didn't know, right? And so we ended up getting a.
Is this a full-grown one?
No, they're still 5 months old, so they're 80 pounds at 5 months. So wolves typically grow 12 to 14 months, so they're not full grown yet.
Wow. And how big is it already?
80 pounds, about 5 inches.
And the mane.
Yeah, and so a couple things about the wolves. James, go back. Yeah. So we didn't know this, right? We knew that they were a Pleistocene wolf. We knew that they existed in the went extinct about 12,000 years ago, when a lot of megafauna went extinct, like during kind of that younger Dryas kind of cooling period. They went extinct as well, right? And we knew all we have is we don't have frozen dire wolves or frozen samples. We literally just know from skeletal remains that they were 20 to 25% larger. They were stockier. They probably weren't as fast based on kind of their body weight as a normal wolf would be. But we knew that they had thicker skulls, larger cranium, and whatnot. And we assumed that and we did find this out in the genome, which is pretty cool, that they were white. Because there's like this misconception for a while that they were red because some scientists wanted to make a paper and assume that they were red so they get their paper.
Doesn't that make sense from natural selection?
Yeah.
They're an Arctic hunting animal.
Yeah, and they have this beautiful, we didn't know this, they have this beautiful like mane-like qualities. And when they're babies, you saw a couple pictures, their fur almost feels like polar bears. It's crazy.
Wow.
Is
it like polar bears and it's hollow? Or is it
no, it's not. It's like typical wolves. But it's incredibly thick. It grows in kind of these clumps. But then as they've grown in, they've started to get this kind of like mane to them, which is
the
incredible.
females as well?
Well, the female, she's only 6 weeks old, so it's 2 weeks old. So if you keep going through a couple other photos, yeah, I mean they're just beautiful. And I mean, it's funny. Someone actually said they on our team was like, you almost look like Shetland wolves at some point, right?
Right.
But
They're so stocky.
They're stocky. They're thicker. They are. I mean, they're absolutely beautiful. So this is Khaleesi. So who looks like a baby. And we nailed it. We named her.
Can we hear it?
We named Khaleesi for George R. R. Martin, obviously. Who's an investor in Colossal.
Oh, wow. Nature's cute little murderers.
Well, everything in nature murders something, right?
Yeah.
Like we murder.
Well, cows murder grass.
Yeah. And people are now saying you can hear grass and other plants like scream.
Yeah. They scream.
So I guess we all are bad.
Life eats life.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reason why plants have chemicals that dissuade us from eating them. What are they eating at?
So they love to chew on thorns in this state. So we have the different phases of, we built a 145-page animal guide. These are actually different horns from different elk and other species that we're putting out there.
And they chew on it
They just love
like a dog does. Yeah.
like a dog does, right?
So are you letting these animals kill things, or are you feeding them?
So we're feeding them still. So they eat a combination of bison meat, horse meat, and
Do you
some.
plan on
in-
letting them kill things?
So we're
eventually?
just about to introduce carcasses to them. So giving them part of a carcass and letting them feed, building in that dynamic between the two brothers for now. And then and they are starting to exhibit some hunting behavior.
Are you going to let them hunt?
I mean, they are on a seemingly wild 2,000-acre preserve with just them, so they do have the ability to hunt on that preserve. But they're not doing it yet. They're starting to exhibit the original, kind of the first inkling that they're trying to do that. But we want them to live. We want them, and we're going to probably make 2 or 3 more. We want a solid little social pack that we can monitor, that can live a seemingly wild life that we can understand more about. Wow. It's cool. But the other thing that's equally cool to it, going back to the Red Bull story, can you...
Which is crazy to me that you have reignited these 10,000-year-old hunting chains.
Yeah.
That they're starting
Including
to
size. We understand more about, like, we looked at what genes made really a direwolf blood bowl was separate. And the beautiful thing for us is that we had a 13,000-year-old group and a 73,000-year-old skull, so we could actually understand the genetic distance. With that much genetic distance between them, you could actually understand, what truly was fixed and conserved in the direwolf genome and what wasn't just population genomics, right? If you and I are 50,000 years apart, there's a lot of different mutations in that time period. But if we can really say, okay, what made Ben Ben, what made Joe Joe? Oh, here's the overlaps that allowed us to really understand that. Wow. That's awesome. And
it's just fascinating. Behavior characteristics are kind of baked into
They're baked
those
in,
genes,
yeah.
and they just were dormant for 10,000 years, and now these things are waking up.
And so I was in, because I bottle fed Romulus, and Romulus was partly raised with me. I get to go out to the preserve. I check on him quite frequently. It's in the northern United States, where we don't say where it is, but mainly because we're for not just the animal's health, but for human health. Ever since we launched the woolly mouse, we've had very excited people just show up at our labs are not open to the public, and we've had lots of people just show up wanting to see the mice, and so showing people too much of the preserve, we're always very, very nervous. I always scrub all the videos and whatnot to ensure that no one can pick it out.
Right.
We assume people will be moderately excited.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the internet sleuths will try to find you.
Yeah, so we've done, I'm not trying to challenge them, but we've done everything we can to pick up the
Yeah, I understand. You have to. Some dude from Saudi Arabia wants wool.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody wants a dire
We get a lot of, we already get a lot of
wool.
weird calls. But the
I bet you
the
do.
other thing though,
Someone with deep pockets.
oh, we get
Make me a dire wolf, my friend.
I have everything. They have everything.
Collection.
We get a lot of weird calls.
Yeah.
Yeah, from people that are like
Those people that have private zoos.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, like
Yeah.
enormous.
in India.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have that family has like the largest private zoo and preserve.
So wild.
It's so crazy.
Yeah. Well, Texas is history of animals, right?
Yeah.
There's more tigers in captivity in private collections
in Texas than in the wild.
than in the wild of the world.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I was in the so we of the 2,000 acres, we have a subsection of it. We have an animal hospital, a storm rescue shelter. We have a couple of natural dens that we built for them, as well as an animal husbandry area. So that way, when we want to take photos of them or videos of them or do blood tests, they're in it.
The government of Mexico has been partnered with the cartels for at least 2 administrations, is what it looks like. And the cartels are just like running that whole game, that whole sort of northwestern like quarter of Mexico. I can only imagine what we'll find down there.
Really hilarious is the Blue Anon Twitter people,
Oh,
the
dude.
kooky ones who are like, yeah, you're going to go after the cartel. Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck. The greatest military force the world has ever known versus drug runners. Are you out of your
The
mind?
cartels are highly militarized and they're
Sure.
extremely advanced, but yeah, they're not going to compete with us. No.
I had my friend Evan Hafer on here from Black Rifle Coffee, and he was talking about, like, do you understand the kind of, these are very capable people, no doubt. Do you understand the kind of ultra violence that they will experience if they let these, SEAL team guys go after the cartel people?
Because those
How
are proud
insane that would
Americans
be.
that have been itching to defend our nation. Like, they have been itching for the ability to actually do something meaningful.
And that's also the place where, look, Afghanistan doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Oh,
to
it was
send
an opium
military.
operation.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that too. We can get to that.
Oh, yeah.
But it doesn't make sense that we would send troops over there. It makes sense that we would send troops after the cartels. If you think about the
Absolutely.
amount of death that occurs in the United States because of fentanyl overdoses, where you have tainted drugs that are coming in across the border and killing people left at unprecedented
Children,
levels.
like taking kids
Oh, yeah.
from families. My whole
Oh, yeah.
generation was devastated by it. My whole generation.
Everyone today knows someone who died of an overdose.
Yep.
Everyone does. That was very uncommon when I was in high school.
And the problem is that it was not just illegal fentanyl and illegal heroin. The problem is that the Sackler family and the pharmaceutical industry was in on it, and so doctors were prescribing it to normal people. And it was just devastating our whole population all at once. It's so tragic.
That painkiller documentary on Netflix,
Yeah.
or the docudrama series.
And so the administration now in Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, she is like the protege of AMLO, who was the leader of that same party from before, and I think he served 2 terms. It's like, so it's been something like the last 6 to 8 years or something. Their official cartel policy is hugs, not bullets. And what they basically describe is we're causing more death by going after the cartel, and we'll just agree to not touch them. We'll just agree to leave them alone. And I'm kind of exaggerating again, but like that, hugs, not bullets is their official slogan for their policy about the cartels. So it makes sense for us to do something. It's like, we'll do the bullets, you can keep your hugs. Thank you very much. Right?
I wonder what's going to happen with that. Because they did declare them a terrorist organization.
Yeah, I mean, I was worried. I kind of came out a little hot, and I posted something on Twitter that was like, no drone strikes inside of the U.S. No, sir. No, you're not. Because the way that the sort of announcement was worded of like, we're declaring cartel members terrorist organizations, and we will be and drone strikes are like totally A-okay on that, is what someone was saying about it. And I was like, where's the line on allowing the targeting of cartel? Because once you start targeting terrorists, that's why 9/11 was so subversive, is it turned everyone into a possible enemy of the state that can be shipped off to Guantanamo, because terrorism is just this elusive concept.
Right.
And anyone can just become a terrorist if we just call them terrorists. Propaganda.
There was
can do
people
that.
shipped off to Guantanamo who were definitely innocent.
100%.
And did time and got released.
Oh yeah.
You want to radicalize someone? Send them to Guantanamo Bay for a decade for something they didn't do.
Right.
So if you got a guy you know is already a freak, you know he's already a nut, and he's already like doing
That's how you recruit him.
blow and hookers all the time, and maybe he's been caught with a few underage girls.
Well, when you study where he came from and how he got plucked from the Dalton School and then got put into Bear Stearns and then got put through Bear Stearns and then got put into money management, like
it was teaching at one point.
it was teaching at the Dalton School, and then he was a banker at Bear Stearns, which he conveniently left when this big scandal broke that implicated him and the director Goldstein that had hired him and had been helping him up. And then he left and kind of took the ball and took the dirt with him. And then he went into the arms running businesses, which is where he met Maxwell, Daddy Maxwell, not daughter Maxwell, and Anand Khashoggi and Lease and all these other arms traffickers. And that's where he got into those. So it's like you walk slowly into these worlds. And as they're doing that, I'm imagining they're taking tabs on him, like, what kind of guy is this and what's he into? And he's working with arms traffickers. And some of those arms traffickers were famous for blackmail. Like Anand Khashoggi, he was famous for having his yacht filled up with cameras and giving his arms deals everything they could ever want while he's selling weapons to them, and he's got his whole yacht wired up with cameras. Trump later bought that yacht, which is super interesting. Whoa. Do you know about that? So Trump, check this out. And I'm not claiming that Trump is in on everything. It's a very complex thing here, but Trump's history is pretty weird. He bought the Plaza Hotel, which is where the Blue Suite parties that blackmailed J. Edgar Hoover happened. Okay. I could talk about the Epstein stuff for days and start all kinds of trouble for your podcasting.
Well, I think that trouble's supposed to be coming out publicly.
I don't think it's gonna.
Wasn't there? The FBI in New York guy had to step down, right?
Yeah.
They were saying they're withholding files.
Yeah.
So the Pam Bondi's office said that they just got thousands of files.
Allegedly. Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
I've been saying that I'm like Charlie Brown with Lucy in the football.
Yeah.
You know, when she pulls the football away, every time he thinks he's going to get to kick it, and he goes falling on his ass.
Yeah.
That's how it feels.
You haven't read Whitney Webb's books, have you?
No.
You really should. But her research on Jeffrey Epstein is looking backwards at the history of organized crime, the history of Epstein, and it paints a very, we know very well who he worked for, and we know who he was associated with. She has primary sources with pages of sources cited about who put him where, who he interacted with, who said what about him, who claimed what about his life, and it's 2 full books, and it's very well sourced, with primary sources cited all the way throughout. And so it's we don't actually really need the Epstein files to know what was going on. They'll hopefully include a lot of new details, but
don't we need it for rock solid proof? Don't we need the
So take Leslie Wexner that we were talking about earlier. No, we already have the flight logs.
Do we have all of them?
Unredacted. All
really?
of them. Yeah.
All of them. So
well,
theoretically.
the ones we know.
And do we have flight logs with destinations?
Yeah.
So we
Oh,
know.
yeah.
So we know who went to the island.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're all there, and you can read them online. They're on archive.org, as well as other places. But I think that a lot of Epstein's targets were willing. I think that a lot of them, because I think that we're talking, it's not just Jeffrey Epstein, it's organized crime as a network. Like, he's just an employee of organized crime.
Right.
And I think that a lot of those people are basically saying, yeah, I want into the club. Because if you are like a Reid Hoffman, or allegedly, if you're one of those guys and you want more contracts or you want more deals, like allegedly, and like, let's be clear, just because I say something on Joe's podcast does not mean that Joe agrees with me, CNN. Thank you. Because like, I'm a crazy and I got all kinds of theories about Epstein. But like, I think that a lot of them were willing, because I think a lot of them are, I mean, if you're sick enough to rape a child, like on Jeffrey Epstein's island, you're sick enough to want into that club.
Well, for sure, throughout history, there have been pedophiles. That's a fact. For sure, some pedophiles get to prominent positions of power. That's a fact, right?
And the
Jimmy Savile,
the traits that do the same, like
Jimmy Savile in
Exactly.
England, like that. And that should put it out to bed for anybody.
Prince Andrew, Bill
Sandusky.
Gates, allegedly.
I don't know about him. I never heard that. But the Sandusky, I've heard.
You never heard about Bill Gates?
I didn't know he was into kids.
Oh, dude. I mean, he's one of Epstein's closest confidants. And
Here's the thing about the Epstein thing. Weren't they a lot? Were they all underage? Were some
no,
of them?
not at all. No, it's very
Right.
complex.
Right.
And
so some of them were in their
were
20s. Like one girl who was
Absolutely.
complaining, or I shouldn't say complaining. That's
Yeah.
very mild. One girl who alleging that she was 20 at the time. She was saying.
Yeah.
So just because someone has been to the island and has been compromised, right, doesn't
just 'cause they've been to the
necessarily
island?
mean that they've been compromised with underage people. But I think there's a specific group that wants underage people.
Oh, 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say this is not a conspiracy theory. It has been that way throughout history. There
All
are
of history.
many, many, many conspiracies that have been uncovered, and criminal investigations have found that people were trafficking children. It's been done. So this is not like vampires.
No, no.
We're not talking about werewolves.
Child trafficking rings get exposed and brought down around the world relatively frequently, like at least once a year, but they
So-
usually don't make big news because they're usually not like Epstein.
We know there are pedophiles. That's a real
Yeah.
thing. We know there are psychos who get very wealthy and want specific things. Look, there's people that drink rhino horn tea.
Exactly.
Right? Why do they drink rhino horn tea? Because the rhino is so endangered. It's so gangster to have
Just the
rhino
elite
horn
experience.
Exactly.
You
the
want
elite experience.
And what you're talking about is this. It's a
One of the teachers who's been she's been such an advocate and fighter in this world for years trying to point to this. And she said the first experience she ever had around, maybe not the first, but one of the most cementing experiences was she was going to go visit a former student class. And the night before, it was wild. The night before, she went out and picked like Swedish fish and, some donuts and, I forgot what else, pretzels or something. And so she comes in to give him his favorite snacks and forgot them in the car. But she went and she sat with him and talked with him. And right before she was leaving the classroom, he took out a pen and drew like a donut, a fish, and kind of drew the things that it like rattled through to her core. Like he knew what she was thinking the night before. And now that he's, graduated, she still works with him just on a volunteer basis for the sheer joy of just being with him. And she asked him years later, how did you do that? And he, like, were you remote viewing through me? And how did you know at that moment? And he's like, well, once you were thinking of me, that was like my invitation to come in. Like, I won't just crash into someone's thoughts. It's like, I have to be kind of invited in by the thought. So I do think that there's a way to kind of control it. And I know that the teacher that was having the student jump into her brain a lot, the younger man, she said, like, you need to stop that. Like, if I will invite you in when I want you, but you can't just come into my mind whenever. That's not appropriate, Right. And so I think every individual is an individual, right? I mean, how this stuff works and is probably different for each person, but I don't necessarily think, what many scholars have told me is like good energy allows them to swap thoughts, like good juju allows them to do that, being invited in, being open to it. It doesn't feel like they can just go into like, the person running for Senate's thoughts and be like, actually you did fun,
Right. The problem is, like, what if people get really good at that? What if it expands? people are just entering into your thoughts all the time. I think technologically that's going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the things that Elon has said about this Neuralink device that they're enabling, so you're going to be able to talk without words.
Yeah. Yeah. But here's the thing too, right? It's like, I think almost every non-speaker I've met, their concern is love, unity, right? And so if your thoughts are other people and your thoughts are loving and about unity, it's not one of the teachers she's been such an advocate and fighter in this world for years trying to point to this. And she said the first experience she ever had around, maybe not the first, but one of the most cementing experiences was she was going to go visit a former student class. And the night before, it was wild. The night before she went out and picked like Swedish fish and, some donuts and, I forgot what else, pretzels or something. And so she comes in to give him his favorite snacks and forgot them in the car. But she went and she sat with him and talked with him. And right before she was leaving the classroom, he took out a pen and drew like a donut, a fish, and kind of drew the things that it like rattled through to her core. Like he knew what she was thinking the night before. And now that he's, graduated, she still works with him just on a volunteer basis for the sheer joy of just being with him. And she asked him years later, how did you do that? And he like, were you remote viewing through me? And how did you know at that moment? And he's like, well, once you were thinking of me, that was like my invitation to come in. Like I won't just crash into someone's thoughts. It's like I have to be kind of invited in by like the thought. So I do think that there's a way to kind of control it. And I know that the teacher that was having the student jump into her brain a lot, the younger man, she said, like, you need to stop that. Like, if I will invite you in when I want you, but you can't just come into my mind whenever. That's not appropriate, Right. And so I think every individual is an individual, right? I mean, how this stuff works and is probably different for each person, but I don't necessarily think, what many scholars have told me is like, good energy allows them to swap thoughts, like good juju allows them to do that. Being invited in, being open to it, it doesn't feel like they can just go into like, the person running for Senate's thoughts and be like, actually you did fund them,
Right. The problem is, like, what if people get really good at that? Like, what if it expands and then people are just entering into your thoughts all the time? I think technologically that's going to happen anyway.
The Joe Rogan experience.
So this is very strange. She's from Florida. She ran against, I forget his name, but I sent Jamie the video of this. This is one of the nuttiest things. The Republican she was running against in Florida, a primary, was caught on tape talking about having her killed if she does well, is about to get elected.
Oh, Jesus.
Just someone, I know I had heard of him, or some influencer. William Braddock. Okay, now I can't
William Braddock threatens to send Russian-Ukrainian hit squad after rival for Florida GOP primary.
Okay, but they say Russian. Okay, that's actually less weird than some of the other stuff he says, and they don't mention it. So play his recording. Now he got prosecuted, so this is not him just bragging, I guess.
Bad caption. You did not hear that from me.
She's recording him.
That's the worst question I've ever heard in my life.
Keep them on the line. Let's keep them on the line. Like,
Yeah. You can't tell anybody I'm gonna have someone killed. Imagine.
Oh,
How
dang, I
well
would
does
never.
this? Hold up, please. Pause for a second. How well does this dude know that lady? And by the way, why is he breathing so quick? That dude sounds like he's cranked out of his fucking mind. Do you hear that?
well, you heard him say his Freemason brothers, so that means he is.
He's cranked out of
That
his
means
mind.
he parties.
That guy's partying right now.
Yeah.
Like, this is cocaine talk. This isn't
100%.
real. This is cocaine talk, right?
Well, not just that. It is that, but also he got arrested and prosecuted.
Well, you can't have cocaine talk on the fucking
He
phone.
ran away to the Philippines, and that's a pretty dark connection too.
Hold on, keep
Yeah.
going. I want to hear more what he says. But it sounds like cocaine talk.
Did they all get coked out?
Yeah. And you say wild shit.
Dude, you hear that?
He's out of his mind.
No. Wait, pause that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we
he
gotta
is high.
sacrifice the few.
You're 100% right about that.
Yeah, no, he believes that though.
That's his Freemason brothers are bringing money from Malta and Gibraltar.
Can we
Yeah.
pause 1 second? Who is he saying this to? What is the woman's name?
Aaron's.
Can you get a photo of this lady? I bet she's hot, which is part of the problem.
Play this and show you guys the screener I can do.
Oh, play it. Just finish it.
Let's just get a photo real quick so I can get a context. I just want to put it in context because I'm trying to figure out why this guy is blabbing to this lady that he doesn't know really well. I would think he's going to have someone killed. You wouldn't tell like regular friends. You wouldn't tell like casual friends. Like, how well does this guy know this lady?
What's
And is he
cocaine
trying
make you
to?
do? Cocaine makes
Is
you
he trying
confide
to
in people.
impress her?
Yes.
Yes, it does. It does. Is he trying to impress her, and is she attractive? And
Yes, that's a good question.
you know what I mean?
wondered that
Because
as
like,
well.
there's guys that'll just make up stories about like, there we go.
Yeah, he liked it, yeah.
She's pretty. There we go. Exactly. Okay. So it's cocaine talk to a pretty lady trying to impress her with your power.
That's good enough for the CIA to spy and to get that talk and use it as intel, by the way, generally, isn't it?
So here's the other question. How
Look at
does
him.
this...
Just
Yeah,
point-
he's a dork. He's a coked up dork, and she's hot, and this is the first time a hot lady's talked to this coked up dork. Allegedly. He may not have done cocaine. He might just have been nervous. Maybe he's just really attracted to this lady, and it's adrenaline. Or maybe he drank a lot of coffee.
It just sounds like...
It sounds like coke talk.
Well, because all the you probably shouldn't talk about your Freemason brothers and their... a Russian-Ukrainian hit squad. Wow, that's cool of them to get past their differences.
Yeah, they coordinated. They coordinated just for this one special project. Because Captain Cocaine
Okay, but
gonna put a hit out on some lady.
he is connected to something, I think. He wouldn't have run to the Philippines where these kind of people run to. He wouldn't have...
So is he running from the law right now?
No, he's going back to court. They probably like
They
you have to go to
catch him?
jail. But Freeman's brother like, we can't get you out of this idiot. You got coked up and talk to a whore. You know, Gilene's got to do her time and keep her trap shut. This guy's gonna have to do that too. But William Braddock, I'm like, okay, who is he? He must be from a family from there. I couldn't find anything, but maybe I just sucked at it. But where's his bio? Who is he? Who's his dad?
Imagine you're just talking shit and you think you're a badass. You're gonna say cool shit to this girl on the phone and you find out you're being recorded while you're on cocaine. You planned a hit. You might have woke up in the morning with a splitting headache. Doesn't even remember being on the phone saying he was planning a hit. Wakes up, he's paranoid. A nurse.
Yes. Oh, yes. She's
talking to.
They call her conservative activist. No, she was talking about some real shit. She was good. The thing she was talking about with that.
What was it?
I can't remember. I don't.
What they were talking. She was reporting from the hospital.
Yes.
I'm fighting anybody now.
Dude, you're in shape.
I did agree to fight Wesley Snipes like 20 years ago. Yeah, there was
What happened?
Well, you remember what happened with him with taxes?
Yeah, of course. You went to jail, right?
Yeah. So I think they were trying to figure out a way to make money to try to pay the government off. And the UFC, they contacted Well, this guy, Campbell McLaren, who was one of the original producers of the first UFC before Zuffa bought it, he knew me because I worked for him at the time. I was the post-fight interviewer in 1997 and 1998. And that was when I first started working for the UFC.
I
and
remember.
Then I started again as a commentator in 2001. So in 97, when I knew him, he knew that I did martial arts. He knew I was obsessed with this. And then, so he contacts me, like, I guess it was like 2004 or 5 or something like that, somewhere around then. And he says, this is going to sound crazy, but Wesley Snipes wants to have a UFC fight. And he wanted to fight Jean-Claude Van Damme. And we didn't think that that would be compelling. And so we offered some other names. And we said, what about Joe Rogan? And he said, yes. And I said, well, what do you mean? Like, when are we talking about? Like, how? Because I've been training. I was brown belt jiu-jitsu, and I'd been training kickboxing still. I was regularly training. And so I would have had to really ramp everything
Well, and
up.
he was kind of a martial arts guy,
Yeah,
right?
he's a
Like-
martial artist, but I don't think he's ever had a fight. And I don't think he has any ground game. And that's a giant problem.
No,
and
you would have gotten a hold of
Well,
him.
also, I was a national. I mean, I competed nationally in Taekwondo for 5-6 years, traveled around the country, like, and I had 3 kickboxing fights. I was a good stand-up fighter, like, and I can kick very hard. I'm very good. And even then I was even better because I was in my 30s.
So what happened?
He didn't want to do it. Like, as time
For
went
every
on,
reason you just said, you would have killed him.
as time went on, I think he kind of understood that it was a bad idea.
Yeah.
I think initially he thought who knows? It could have been chemically fueled. These conversations with
The
him.
desire to have it was chemically fueled,
It
fueled, and then he
It could have
sobered
been.
up.
But I trained every day. I
You-
trained
you-
for 6
You
months.
would have annihilated him.
I was kickboxing with Rob Kamen in the morning, and I was doing jiu-jitsu at night. I was exhausted.
prepping for the Wesley
Yes.
Snipes fight, or just didn't come?
We were in negotiation.
No,
So
you-
the first negotiation was 50-50. We were going to split it 50-50, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, great. And then a couple weeks went by, and I had lawyers involved, the whole thing. And then it was like,
And people I haven't talked to for 20 years.
then you have to break character, tell the truth.
No, you know, the thing is, this is what's crazy. Okay. You want the whole setup story?
Sure.
I can be quick
Sure,
about
sure,
it.
sure.
So where I take my podcast is in one of Howie Mandel's buildings, and he has another building in this area. So I was working on something, and I was supposed to go on Howie's show that day. And they said, Howie will meet you out in the street or something for whatever reason. So I go out in the street, and the first thing Howie says to me when he sees me, he goes, here comes Bill Burr. And I go, you too? Like, do you know this story? And he said, no, I don't know about it. And I said, you know what? Heck with it. I'm just going to tell it on your show, so don't ask me anymore. And I went on a show, and I told this story about how 10 years ago my stepmother came to me and said, do you know who Bill Burr is? I never heard of Bill, didn't know who he was, because I don't really consume much popular culture. I had no idea he was a famous comedian. He could have been the lawnmower guy. Looked up Bill, first thing I saw was like, oh my God, he looks just like Dad. When I was 18 years old at an IHOP on my 18th birthday, my father told me, you have a half-brother that I sired at the same time as you, whose name is Bill. So suddenly these facts come together, and my mother telling me these stories. I talked to my dad subsequently about it, and he was very cagey about it. And when I said, why won't you tell me where this person is or who this person is, he said, I'm trying to protect you. So when my stepmother had told me, it kind of made sense, like, well, if my half-brother is the super famous comedian, my dad, in a way, wouldn't want me to know because he wouldn't want me to feel like I was number 2 because Bill's so famous. I know it sounds crazy, right?
You think that's why he's trying to protect you?
Well, I don't know. So fast forward to Howie saying something on the street. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to say something. And I swear to God, hand on my heart, last time I was with you in California, I almost pulled you aside after we were on, and I was going to tell you the story because I knew you knew Bill, and I was going to back channel, see if there was anything to the story from Bill's side.
Wow.
So imagine 6 or 7 years since we talked on your show.
Yeah, I don't even
2018.
know.
2018, somebody said to me today. But so anyway, start talking. But the point is so here I am. Fast forward. I'm just sick of seeing memes of my face with Bill's, and so I just decide on the spur of the moment, you know. So Howie, of course, loves it. But I said on Howie's show that first time, I don't think Bill's my half brother. I don't think there's anything there other than an uncanny resemblance. Fast forward, the thing comes out, it gets a little bit of social media, and then it goes away. And I think, good. And Bill didn't say anything, so I figured Bill was kind of like, whatever. It was a mild amusement. You know, he could have made a joke out of the whole thing, and he didn't. So then Howie calls me, and I'm in LA working recently, and Howie's like, "We've come on the show, Bill's gonna be on." And I said, "Is Bill cool with it?" "Oh yeah, no problem." So then I go there, and it's like, it turns into this thing that you see happening on camera. It's like, it's weirdness times, it's like a skit, but it's real. And Bill's on me, then Bill's on Howie, and it gets just, okay. So I just told you basically everything I know, okay? I have people I've known for 20, 30 years coming up to me going, "What do you think?" And I said, I don't think we're related. I mean, yeah, there's a resemblance, but I don't think we're related. "Well, did you get a DNA test?" And I'm like, "No, I don't. There's nothing to get a DNA test for." "Well, I think he's your brother." So people that know me, and I'm telling them I don't think he's my brother, now they want a DNA test to prove it. That's how much it's taken on a life of its own.
Do you think it's just because they want a DNA test because it's fun if he's your brother?
No, they're convinced.
For real, for real?
Yes.
Really?
For real. I swear to God. I mean, people I'm close to, people that were at my wedding, I'm like, they're like, "No, you need a DNA test."
Did Bill's dad know, well, did your dad know Bill's mom?
No, my father wouldn't talk to me about it at all. Okay, some more context.
Okay.
My stepmother in that same time, 10 years ago, when she told me that she thought Bill Burr was my half-brother, this guy I don't know, right? I mean, just imagine if I, hey, do you know Joe Polanski?
Right.
And you look up and it's a famous comedian. That's, you know what I mean? That was,
Right.
So in that same thing with my stepmother, she told me that she thought my father had sired 12 children.
Whoa.
You know, all over the place. All over the place. He was a traveling musician and a whore to his own admittance. So it kind of makes sense. He once told me he'd slept with 1,000 women. So 12 out of 1,000, you know what I mean? It's the
normal odds.
The math are
actually pretty good.
Yeah. And so when I went to my father and I told him what my stepmother had said, he got really cagey and wouldn't tell me anything. He promised me that he would write down the names of the illegitimate children on a piece of paper so I could find them after he died.
Oh my
and
God.
he's died, and there's no paper.
Oh my God.
So now I got people wanting DNA tests because they're convinced that Bill is my half-brother.
Is Bill willing to do a DNA test?
I think that's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
no, you have to do it.
No, that's what I'm saying. I mean, first of all, to Bill's credit, he's been, everything you saw on camera was his general irritation on the thing, but he also kind of finds it funny because he's a comedian.
I thought it was a skit. I thought you guys put together a skit. I really did. I thought because I thought, Bill does a lot of acting. I thought you guys were just around. You like pro wrestling. I thought you guys just decided to troll the world.
Let me, in the heat of that moment with Bill and Howie egging it on, like the emotionality of the thing came out because it's sort of a weird thing. We're suddenly in the middle of a situation. It's like a meta situation.
Right.
So yes, on some level we were playing along, but then it starts to become like, wait, this is kind of weird, and then it starts to kick in, and then Billy Bush is in there, and it took on a life of its own. So what I'm saying is there's enough there that people are all over me to come up with more answers, but you see what I'm saying? It's like it's spun out of control into its own thing. Now it's a DNA test problem, which is a bit on its own. Like, we're gonna do like a live stream with, we'll do it here, me, you, and Bill. You know what I mean?
Well, people would trust you if the two of you got together and just both took a DNA test and found out you were brothers.
I don't think Bill's my half-brother, but he looks.
Well, listen, there's a simple way to find out. I'll finance it. How much is a DNA test? How much does a DNA test cost to find out if someone's your sibling, Jamie? Let's find out. It can't be that much money. It's 2025. I'll do it.
We'll get it sponsored.
Yes, maybe 23andMe, but didn't they sell out to somebody? Somebody buy them? $200.
There you go.
I'll pay $200 to find out. Why wouldn't you want to know? What did Bill think about this? Like the possibility that his mother had an affair with your dad?
I don't think Bill gives it any credence. That's my sense of it.
Okay. He just thinks it's bullshit.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what Bill thinks. You know what I mean? If a person doesn't believe that somebody is their father, not their real father that they grew up with, and I do know people who've had that. They grew up with somebody, and in fact, it just happened in my family.
Right.
That a cousin of mine found out that her father was not her father, and she's in her 60s because of a DNA test.
Oh my God.
So.
Did they have magic powers? Did the folklore versions have magic powers, or were they just
I imagine that they're probably based on the real life people that they then magicked up because my evidence is like Snow White itself. And
It says this type of supernatural being in Germanic folklore. Accounts of dwarves vary significantly throughout
Dwarfs with
history.
an F.
Dwarfs vary significantly throughout history. They are commonly, but not exclusively, presented as living in the mountains or stones and being skilled craftsmen. Huh.
And only males. So dwarfs with an F is the fantasy one.
Okay.
And they're
So
all men.
dwarfs are all a bunch of gay guys.
Yeah.
Little tiny gay guys hanging out.
Well, they
waiting for that
originally
lady
were.
to show up.
It was like 7 non-binaries or something.
But here's the question for the new movie: what did they do? Did they? Because what I had heard was that they CGI'd things in there.
Yeah, look at them. How bad it looks.
Can I see what it looks like? Is there a video?
A lot of people make videos about why the CGI seems worse than when it first came out, and that's because these studios are working people. Disney's notorious. Disney's one of the
Get a
worst
video,
companies ever
Jamie, so I can
existed.
see what it looks like. It's kind of sucks that a kid gets put into the position like that, where they're talking about politics and talking about.
Look, if you put your kids in auditions, you are trafficking your children, so you know.
Oh wow, that does look bad.
Oh, it doesn't look real at all.
Yeah, and then like they do all the work while she dances around being a leader or whatever. The script was
Wait a
screwed
minute,
from
how
the
much
start.
does this cost? We should get Doge looking at this movie. They spent $250 million bucks making that movie. But imagine you spend $250 million and you get some young girl and you don't kind of talk to her about like, hey, don't get political. You're young, and I know you have opinions about things, but this should be just about the movie.
Well,
Let's just
to defend Big Head Girl, let me tell you something. The message of the movie is to be that bitch. That's the message that they wrote a script that's telling girls, I don't need nobody tells me. I'm a 20-year-old girl, so obviously I should run my mouth all the time. That's the theme of the new Snow White.
no, really?
Yes. Now
It's not the same story.
no. So now they put it all on her. Now they've failed. Here's what happened. She made the cardinal error of saying free Palestine on Twitter. So she could say all that men are bad and this and that, but once you do that, now they've put the entire weight of the failure upon her. When really, it's like making Jimmy Fallon apologize for doing a Chris Rock impression when Lauren and a team of lawyers and consultants decided if it was okay, the amount of brown they put on him to simulate Chris Rock.
Right.
You think Jimmy Fallon made that call? Well, he's got to sit there and apologize to a white Robin DiAngelo comes on. I'm not watching this. Am I dreaming? And he's like, he's clearly drunk, and I don't blame him. And he's like, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate. Just appreciate Jimmy, this weird